make sure that the line is marked.
We're good.
This one's ready too?
Yep, that's the Hindmarsh
Gotcha.
plat and variance.
Okay.
But
So,
really,
I think just Larry Don signs
Yeah,
the
just very
variance.
Don signed this one.
scrap the alcohol so they don't have a reason to
Yeah.
come with. Okay, well, I'll give them the two options.
She can take both of these.
Oh, you need to date it too.
Right. Well, and it's just the night during the
Correct.
concert. And I don't even know how many people are gonna show up for that. It's either gonna be like Jim's where it was like 70 people, or it's gonna be 3,000 or 4,000 because it's the only thing going on. So, but I would bet on the first.
You guys tell me what day it is.
What year?
Yeah.
You can take both of these.
this is the link that CPA people or whoever just responded to their email sent.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the planning department, and they're going to give us some information that they have received for the discussion of the changes to the county land use code. So Don, the floor is yours. Yours and Jane.
Yeah, we just need the written information that you want us to post on our portal for the public to see and read the items for discussion for when we put the public notice out.
Forwarded everything I've done.
I think that, well, and as far as the process for going through for the changes, I think that needs to be the first thing. So, and forgive me because I have not read the entire thing, but I think this, on the 18th is the first meeting. Then we have a second and a third, and then a decision is made after that, and with a 30-month window in between, so that you have time to publicly notice everything that we're discussing. Is that how that? So basically, August, September, October. It will be November or December before we actually even get to a decision of the land use code. Is that correct?
I don't know if there's
How did you
a
come up
certain
with that timeline, Commissioner?
time
I'm
frame.
not- That's what I'm asking, because I know that there's a process for that. I know that we have to review
three
it for the
public
30 days. There's a, because we have to post it, we have to open it for public comment, and then to go through the process properly. And I think,
I don't think there's a requirement for more than one public hearing, but I think it only states that there's 35 days from the time you give the recommendations to P and Z for them to respond,
right.
and then schedule a public hearing.
I still think that it would be prudent that we have at least more than one public hearing,
Right.
just so that we have
Public
time
outreach is needed
for
this
outreach
particular
and to
one.
make
Correct.
sure that everybody has given their comments before we make a decision. And I
Yeah.
think nobody wants us to go on for years.
No.
So we want to get it done, but we also want to make sure that we have enough time for people to comment. Some of the emails that I've read, people are still fearful of coming out in the public. So if we respect that, give them enough time, I think we could have 3 public comment sessions, and then we're still have the ability to make a decision by November or December.
Are you planning on having a public comment session at P&Z or only here?
I think both would be beneficial.
We could schedule that or open that up. It's not typical, but
Yeah.
it would be another
I don't
access.
know if we need to have 3. I could see maybe 2, but 3, I mean, you're going to have the same people coming over and over again, saying the same thing.
It might make sense to have one at P and Z because they do theirs at night. You
I hear
do,
you.
you do yours during the day. They've got a commission that's going to be making the recommendations.
And we could move our second meeting to the night too, to give them the opportunity to have public comment. I mean,
Well, the second meeting probably will need to be in a bigger venue anyway.
Right.
and we
Could
can
be,
use
yeah.
annex, I guess, that's
We've done that
250.
before. Mm-hmm.
And one other thing you might want to take into account is doing a hybrid meeting for the 18th of August. So where they can do public comment via the YouTube channel versus having to be in here or having Kim read 15
Okay.
emails.
So we could do it via Zoom along with like we did in the beginning of this whole
Correct.
COVID.
That way
I don't have
people
an
are
issue.
here in person, but then there's also those that could actually make comment via Zoom or YouTube, I guess, YouTube channel.
I would think that that's fine. We're set up, the technology's already sitting here in front of us, just like the city already has it, so.
And I'm sure you're gonna hear plenty about postponing the August 18th meeting, so we haven't sent that public notice out yet. You
No,
guys.
no
can-
decision is going to be made on the 18th. It's just for public comment.
No, I understand that. It's just based on whatever you hear, just let us know.
Well, I think we should go forward with the August 18th meeting.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we're
We
going
don't
to
have
have
to-
that hearing and that public comment session for sure.
We don't have to
but-
send it to the paper until Monday, so.
Well, I would say
So,
let's
so
do
are
it.
you need, Don, are you needing clarity on exactly what you
Yes.
need to have through the planning and that document that you're gonna put in the newspaper, what the items, the
Right,
issues
we'll
are?
put the public notice about the meeting in the newspaper, and
Right.
it will give the link to our public portal on the
Right.
website.
Yeah,
So then, when they go into the portal
They can
and
see
go
it.
to the public notice, then the document will show up there that lists all the items
That are gonna be
up
reviewed.
for discussion and review.
gotcha.
So are you wanting, so to compare what it states now to compare to what it's going to say, are you looking at the language?
Probably not at this first public hearing, because that's getting into the exact wording changes. I mean, right now, you're kind of doing a broad scope of major change in the county with the 1 acre deal.
Well, I think
and
we could just go
Doris
with
River.
the original list that we already gave you, and then I know that our
Planning
Chairman
gave
of
us
the
3
planning gave-
more.
did some gave us, I'm fine with that list that was presented to you last week, or how about you,
Yeah,
commissioners?
no, I think that covers
So
all that
I took the liberty of taking that list
Yeah.
and putting it along with the quotes from the land use code, from what it says
Yeah.
now to what the list said you wanted to change it to.
That's good, Shaq, yeah.
You ever sleep?
I was going to say, you're going so fast I can't read it, but.
No,
Okay, I'll slow down. Let me start at the very beginning. So, beginning in Chapter 5, the subdivision regulations currently reads, General design guidelines approval of any subdivision will require covenants that a minimum contain the following design guidelines: setbacks, fences 30 feet, dwellings 50 feet from county right-of-way, a minimum of 50 feet from right-of-way of service roads, and 50 feet from lot lines. Setback from barns, garages, auxiliary structures shall be a minimum of 25 feet, and within the Dolores River Valley, all new commercial and residential construction, including individual sewage disposal systems, shall be set back 100 feet. That's how it currently shows. What was proposed was that lots greater than or equal to 3 acres have setbacks of 30 feet from lot lines. Smaller than 3 acres be a minimum of 20 feet, and setbacks from auxiliary be 15 feet from lot lines, and that setbacks from county right-of-ways would be a minimum of 10 feet. And these setback changes would also have to be changed in the table under 1201.2. Then under 50101.
Real quick, Shaq, on the 10-foot setback from county road right-of-ways, would that also be on CDOT right-of-ways?
That wasn't discussed last week. I just put in what they discussed.
I don't think that was discussed at all, and that's why this should go back to planning, because some of these are what they brought forward, and I think we need their input also, so that we have something that's put together well. So
Okay.
Mr. Pope is right there, and if you were raising your hand for CDOT right-of-ways, is that what you were?
For access permits on CDOT, CDOT kind of controls that.
Correct.
Mhm.
Which CDOT?
Well, that's to CDOT's right-of-way. You're talking about a setback from their right-of-way.
Right.
So
Just
right
like-
now, it's 50 feet.
Mhm.
Any changes would need to address CDOT's right-of-ways as well
I
as
would
the...
say yes, because our sign out at the fairgrounds is 5 feet.
Mhm.
And you'd have to be traveling 60 miles an hour to hit that
Yeah.
thing because the right of way is 240 feet
Right,
wide.
yeah.
So I would say yes. It would be.
Makes sense if we're gonna do it for the county road,
Yeah.
from our county road right of ways.
CDOT's gonna have to be notified.
As long as you're out of their
How far is
right-of-way.
the sign down at the casino?
Does the land use code reflect setbacks from CDOT right of ways?
It says from all road right-of-ways.
And I think that's, if we use the current language, just change.
It would be
setback,
30 feet.
it covers.
Okay.
Using current language, just changing the setback, I don't think it specifies CDOT.
No, it doesn't differentiate which road right-of-way.
Okay.
Why don't you continue, Shaq?
All right, so currently 5101.7, design guidelines for residential development, reads that the minimum lot size for residential development must be 3 acres. The net 3-acre lot size shall not include official green signed county road right-of-way. Developer shall demonstrate a building developable footprint within each lot. The developer can accomplish this by creating building envelopes with predetermined building footprint and/or creating lots of sufficient size or shape to accommodate appropriate building footprint. Each lot, regardless of size, shall have a buildable, developable footprint where a 230-foot diameter circle can fit entirely into each lot and shall also comply with the Montezuma County Road and Bridge standards as amended. Within the Dolores River Valley, the minimum lot size for residential development must be 10 acres. An allowable 10-acre lot must include a minimum of 30% developable land. Developable land includes slopes less than 30 degrees, which are capable of supporting an engineered design septic system per Montezuma County Resolution Number 4-97 as amended. Residential development will require the following: approval of septic system location and type, approval of the driveway access design and location, assignment of a county address, compliance with general design guidelines and 5101.3. And the
So
proposal
let
was,
me stop you right there. So Rob, when you made this recommendation to us last week, you were only talking that the lots be equal throughout the county. This other criteria still remains within the county. An engineered septic system is still required, correct? We're not deleting that.
That is correct.
Okay. So really, it's specifically talking about lot size, and that's it.
That's correct.
Okay.
so the changes that you agreed to discuss changing were minimum lot size for residential development must be greater than or equal to 1 acre with the change in zoning designation to R1 through 3. The Dolores River Valley should be treated no different than any other area of the county, and engineering and proper construction can accomplish any structure on any slope, and this engineering also exists for sewer systems. This section would be eliminated as it affects private property owners' rights. And then we'd also have to change, or you'd also have to address Section F. Chapter 2, permit procedures, letter E, public notice procedure currently reads as follows: to send a notice to all adjacent property, and they wanted to change the word to adjoining properties to avoid confusion. That would also have to be amended in 2202.2A1 and 7101.1B1. And then the fourth proposed change, 3315 HISTZ, Historic Use Zone, currently reads that landowners in this designation may continue documented actual use of July 20, 1998 and continuing to date of termination of said use by property owner without interruption. And the talk was of changing the high impact permit should remain in effect as long as no change of use occurs. This would also include change of ownership and/or dormancy as long as the use remains the same.
Jack, I only saw one omission. We also recommended to eliminate the 230-foot diameter requirement, as
Oh, right.
setbacks would accomplish the same thing. If the lot will allow building and meet the required setbacks, then the lot should be okay.
Yeah, we discussed that last week.
So, yeah, the language about the 230-foot diameter footprint would just be deleted.
And then, I don't know, would we address this here, but the other two recommendations about signing off was the fire-wise and the,
And those were listed under pet peeves of Rob's, but his suggestion was to move forward with this because he had not consulted the P and Z board.
That's correct.
okay.
Right. The only other item, Shaq, I'd add would be what John and I had discussed on the reference to a Colorado revised statute that no longer exists, and I can get you that information.
We don't need public input on that.
Yeah, we don't need public
If
input
it's not a
on
revised
law.
It's a
statute anymore, it's
right, you just change it. I mean, it has to be
So-
deleted.
But you're right, we should
It's
note,
just so it's on
We
there.
should note
If
that
somebody
it's a change.
comments, then you can answer them.
right.
But Don, do we need, if we took those two changes off, or do we need to go through the same process as far as who signs off on the plat? Or is that,
The way it is now is the document, well, yeah, we, let me how to word this. We probably could amend what it states as the weed plan and the fire mitigation plan and just take out the wording where it says that it will be completed prior to signing the Mylar by the BOCC. And
Because-
then if we wanted to do something more with that, we could in the future.
So we could just,
Is it-
that easily make that kind of an exception, or that we could state that
I think it's just one paragraph or
Yeah.
one sub-paragraph that states that it'll be completed, because you can't go fire mitigate 60 acres if you don't even know where somebody's gonna build a house.
right, you don't know where the envelopes go, the building.
So, yeah, if we took out that one sub-paragraph or sentence in there that says
Must be.
must be signed
Yeah.
prior, or must be completed prior to signing of the Mylar by BOCC.
Does that sound right to you, John?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, that's simple. That's pretty simple.
And I would have to double check if
Yeah, do that.
if the weed plan, I don't believe, I mean, you can't go mitigate weeds in January when you started the process in, October.
and they're still obligated to the.
Yeah, they're still
Yeah,
obligated to the
so-
weed inspections,
we-
and Bonnie's still capable of inspecting that land and making sure that it's
Mhm.
no noxious.
Correct. Instead of inspecting 60 acres, she may be complied with just 3 acres or 5 acres or 1 acre, depending.
Okay.
They still
that
have to comply with the noxious weeds.
Absolutely,
No
with those
matter
those
the-
A-list noxious.
The plan's
weeds.
still in effect.
Okay.
It's just
Right.
a matter of not just
The sign off
per
on the
a new
Mylar.
subdivision, single lot development or
Right.
whatever.
Gotcha.
All right, commissioners, is there any other discussion for our recommendations for our planning?
Does that give you enough direction? Are we answering the question that you have?
To get on your portal,
Yeah.
what's going to be
Yeah,
discussed in that public
That way
hearing?
we'll get that fine-tuned, and that
Good.
will be what is for the public to read and review.
I'll
when they
email
go-
that to you this afternoon.
Do
Good.
you have any additions
So
or
I think I
comments?
copied everybody. Don brought up some points on his email. There was 5 points he brought up, and
Oh, right.
and I responded to that email. There's been some discussion about the exact wording of how it's gonna show up in the land use code. And if you go through the recommendations, and use the existing language in the land use code with a few changes and a few deletions. That language can be accomplished very simply. And the official language can be put together, reviewed in short order. And also, I'd like to request on these public meetings, there have a little bit of time before those meetings so that we can review why planning and zoning recommended these changes. and this background discussion that how we arrived to that. So maybe it won't answer a few of the questions that'll be raised
On the 18th.
beforehand.
Yeah.
And it won't take a long time, but there's a lot of angst about the Dolores River Valley and why these recommendations were, and I think I can address most of those in pretty short order.
Good.
Rob, are you suggesting doing that prior to the 18th or at the beginning of the meeting on the
Just
18th?
Beginning of the meeting at the 18th.
So you
Okay.
just,
Good.
Shaq can schedule that on the agenda.
Yeah, just give me a few minutes and I'll kind of give them the background of why those changes were recommended.
All right, sound good, commissioners?
Yeah, I think that's,
Yes.
that's wise.
I think it does sound good, so that can be expressed prior to even any comment taking place.
Yeah, hopefully that'll alleviate some angst and cut out half the questions or concerns if it's understood a little better on what direction, what view,
Okay.
how it came about.
So I think we still need to decide if we're gonna just use 2 meetings or 3. I think that in the midst of everything, I don't think 30 more days is gonna matter, so I would still recommend at least 3 public hearings before we make our decision.
Well,
Why don't we make that determination
Yeah,
after
I
the
was
second
gonna
meeting?
say,
'Cause
let's-
we can always continue a meeting.
Yeah, let's take a look at the 18th and what spawns from that meeting, both public and from our planning commission's take on it, and then see if there's another warrants. Some modifications may come about from that first public hearing, and then I'd say at least 2. I think 2 would probably be a fair, do
And
that.
then we can determine the 3rd if needed.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have the
I
opportunity.
can live with that.
Gentlemen, there was some discussion about having a public hearing of P and Z. I think that we could easily accomplish that after our general business in the
Okay.
evening, so people could bring that forward.
That-
And that may or may not help determine whether
Yeah.
3 is needed for.
So when is your next scheduled meeting?
The 13th.
On the
of August.
13th,
Well,
Yeah,
then that would
perfect.
be-
so
That's
it's just a
perfect.
couple weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay,
and about a week before the public hearing here. So
Correct.
if planning and zoning's willing to take that on, I think that will be another filtering process of questions and ideas and things prior to our first meeting. So I think that's good.
And I'll post that notice on our public portal.
Good.
okay.
So these can get posted on our site if you guys are good with them today, correct?
Yeah,
Relatively.
I'll
quickly.
email them to you.
Once
this
we get 'em.
afternoon, so-
Yeah, once you
We're
get
fine.
them fine-tuned and cleaned up the way you want them to be cleaned up,
Mhm.
yeah.
and we only have to have a 15-day public notice prior to the public hearings. It's not 30 days.
I got you, so.
Of course, we'll have to hit the one-week paper cycle to fit
And
that
I
in.
guess
So
that's
it-
my concern, because
Yeah.
we're so limited to the vehicles that we have to use anymore
Right.
for public notices that I would hate to restrict it. I think the more notice that we can give them, the 30 days is better than the 15th, that what it states in the land use code. Just so that nobody can come back on the backside and say, we never heard about this.
Right, and it's not like we're gonna be changing that information after each meeting.
No.
Mhm.
So that information will be out there from the start.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, any other
Sounds good.
questions, commissioners? All right, do you have, how's it going? How many application, what's it look like in our county right now?
What do we have? 3 for P and Z on the 13th. I believe we've got three coming up for you guys on the 4th.
Good.
The solar
Understand.
farm guys are on the 11th. They just committed to that today, so.
Mhm.
But we're getting all kinds of phone calls on the Dolores River Valley and emails as you've received, so.
Yeah, thanks for forwarding those on to us,
Yeah.
Don. I appreciate you doing that. So
Sure.
we can read those and see what the concerns are from everybody.
Right. And
Yeah,
that's
appreciate it.
basically, the biggest, concern.
Concern, right.
The rest of the county, I haven't really received much one way or another,
Okay.
but that's kind of how it goes. If it doesn't affect them directly at that moment in time, then
Yeah.
you don't hear about it. If it affects them a month later, then it's a firestorm.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
Good.
Appreciate
Thank you, guys.
the update.
Yep.
Thank you.
Keep at 'em.
All right, at this time, we have public comment. If anybody would like to comment to the commissioners, if you'd come up to the podium and state your name and address.
For anybody that I have to answer to professionally, I'm taking that. Just saying. My name is Laurel Schaefer. I live at 27,000 Road U.2, Dolores, Colorado. I am addressing you as a proud citizen of Montezuma County and an even prouder American citizen. You all know what I do for a living, and I want to share with you that over the past 4 months, I have been in reflection of my profession and my personal beliefs quite a bit during this time. As I have come to the conclusion that it is time to brave my fears at a local level of judgment and possibly a state level and speak in person versus all the clicks and comments most people have become accustomed to. I will be judged either way, as the art of real conversation seems to be lost since the inception of social media. For fear of saying the wrong thing or not saying something just perfectly has become a fear for those who want to speak up, and my faith reassures me that the quiet voices matter, and what is placed in our hearts matters, and it takes us all, even if we don't always agree. Just because we don't experience certain things, it doesn't mean they don't exist in our communities. For example, child abuse on so many disturbing levels, hunger, addiction, suicide, mental health, housing, racism, job loss. And now we are faced with the unknowns of COVID-19. COVID-19 at a simple level of doing the best to limit spread and manage each case is enough work. Our local public health agencies across the region and the state have enough work just helping those who contract the disease and have had to put so much of their other worthy work on hold to figure out what is best for individual communities. As a Colorado resident and a public health worker, I am absolutely dissatisfied by what our governor and government has asked local public agencies to do. As an American, I am deeply disturbed by what our national government is allowed to get away with on a criminal level. It is all very overwhelming, and I often wonder, what can we really do to fix this kind of corruption? Voting comes to mind, but lately that's being proven not to be enough. I think we can all agree on any side that this is a very critical election year. How convenient that we are becoming so divided right now over a stupid face covering. And it saddens me to see this in our community. For the record, I am on the side of just wearing the thing because I don't want us to be shut down again. I want kids back in school. I want businesses open. I want this virus to be an annoying memory, and if wearing a mask helps a little, I'll do it. If it turns out they don't work, then oh well. It was a temporary inconvenience in my eyes. I think we should all be pitching in to do something to help, because apparently our governor has the ability to shut us down. But the entire health of our people should not be based on politics, and people should not be shamed for wearing or not wearing a mask. No matter our political differences, I think our community needs a reminder that we need to check our hearts before posting, threatening, name-calling, and spreading untruths. Again, just because we have an experience doesn't mean that it's not real or happening in our community. There are so many people in this community working to address issues every day because they love helping others. We have seen hunger be addressed as a community when schools were closed and senior citizens and kids needed food. We have been reminded of the value of our teachers and our schools. We've had quilters step up to make thousands of masks for free. And just this week, they're already reaching out again, asking what they can do to help make masks so our kids can go back to school. I could go on about the new partnerships and growth for the betterment of Montezuma County that have come from the many issues that we have been faced with. Let's continue these kinds of successes and take better care of each other and lift each other up in positive ways. Our children and our young adults are watching, and we can't let a situation like this continue to divide this amazing community.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to make public comment?
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Mate, 301 Abeta Drive, Dolores, Colorado. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for what she said. That's heartbreaking. I'm so sad about the divisions in our community, too. It's really heartbreaking. I'm here because I have so many concerns about the reducing lot size in the Dolores River Valley. And I wanted to just state some information. I shared some information with you guys that I got from the Water Quality Control Division of the state of Colorado yesterday. I'm concerned that I'm not seeing input from emergency management in terms of impacts on traffic and emergency vehicles. When you increase density in the river valley, how will that impact the community? I'm concerned I'm not seeing somebody here from the health department to talk to you guys about the impacts. I'm also concerned natural resources in terms of FEMA permitting are not involved in this conversation, and perhaps they will be. That'd be great. My biggest concern is water quality, and you guys addressed this a little bit in the meeting with P&Z. There are gaps and checks and balances in terms of septic systems, engineered systems in the river valley. At this point, if somebody wanted to build a little cabin on their property and put in an outhouse, they could. Nobody would know. I'm just saying that out loud. There are currently no requirements for inspections of septic systems, and as you increase density, you increase the opportunity for septic system failures. There are many different kinds of engineered systems. There are engineered systems, I believe they're called advanced systems, from what Melissa Matthews told me, that require twice annual inspections. And those are just warranties for the owner. Has nothing to do with the county inspecting that. So, you know, at least it'd be nice to have a type of system, and I know that that may be case by case depending on what the geology is, what that particular site looks like.
Can I say one thing, Marion?
Sure.
I know that Cap Allen, which is one of the engineers that designs the systems, he sent us an email. I can't remember what it was, but I think it pertains to what you're talking about.
Okay. I guess in the notes that were presented here, there was approval of systems, and I guess what I'm wondering is approval by whom? Will those systems follow FEMA requirements? Will those systems be approved just by the engineer designing the system, or will the county have someone that would approve those systems? And then finally, I would strongly encourage you to adopt the transfer. I'm almost done. Adopt the transfer of ownership inspection opportunity for systems that are older than 20 years. I know that's been in a moratorium, I believe, since last January or February. And that's one way that those checks and balances could be accomplished, that you could check systems that are older than 20 years. I know you're going to hear from a lot of other people, but I just wanted to kind of focus on water quality.
Can I could address that, Marion. And I believe that I'm correct on this. We follow everything on Regulation 43, except for one of the parts of that is the transfer of title, meaning that if I wanted to give 5 acres to my daughter, I would have to have the government involved to do that. Now you don't have to do that. I think that's one of the main keys where the moratorium is in place, but I'll do more checking.
And you could always revise the language to fit, and I'm sure there are lots and lots of examples. You know, I looked at some other counties, and they have, you know, inspections of engineered systems, and, you know, those are done by the county, not by an engineer. So
I think at least from my experience with realtors and people buying properties, and especially homes, residentials, and that sort of thing, that it's almost an automatic on the checklist of things that are to be done by the seller, that they have a septic inspection available for that new buyer to make sure that septic tank and system is in proper functioning order. So I understand, but I don't know that we need to go with redundancy on some of that stuff and put regulations on more regulations on the books than what most people we already do that. So.
Well, I guess I would kind of refer to a comment that Mr. Candelaria made about, trusting people to do the right thing. And when you're looking at a $20,000 or $30,000 investment minimum in a septic system, are you really going to trust people to do the right thing? If they can't afford to do that, it is burdensome, yes. But if you've got an old septic system that could potentially fail and contaminate water quality for the residents of Montezuma County, I think you've got to be, you got to tighten up that system where those gaps exist. And I think there could be some easy ways, interdepartmental communications that could solve that problem. So, thank you so much.
And I have just one comment.
Yeah.
But if you look at Regulation 43, we are actually more stringent than the state within this county. Regulation 43 gives a minimum standard, and we have adopted others in Regulation 43 as far as the engineering that are more stringent than the state. So the state requires to follow the Colorado revised statutes under that Regulation 43. We are more stringent right now. So just remember that too, as these proceed.
Well, and I think the FEMA requirements are different too. I mean, those are
correct.
You got. I think
Correct.
there's a gap there.
There are other things that are going to be considered within
Yeah.
that also.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still open public comment. If anybody else would like to come to the podium, state their name and if they have an issue.
My name is Tiffany Gare. I live at 1752 Brook Street. Excuse me. I want to speak on the mandated masks. Yesterday, I was up at Groundhog, was refused service because I have a medical condition and cannot wear a mask. I have severe adult onset asthma. I was refused service. In the mandated masks, nothing is set out for people with medical issues. As far as any variance or leniency to that, nothing is lettered out for that. As a business owner, the way I look at it is, who are you to tell me what I can and cannot do on my private property and how to dictate to people what they can and cannot have on the outside of their body? The way I look at it is, you can abort in the state of Colorado a 9-month-old pregnancy at a live birth, but you're going to tell people what they can and cannot wear on the outside of their body? We do not have the task force, not in the sheriff's department, not in the police department, and not in the health department, to enforce said laws. People want to wear it, let them wear it. They don't want to wear it, don't make them wear it. But there's been nothing, not in the governor's speeches, nothing to help people with medical issues that cannot wear it.
Aren't there exceptions in that if you have a medical condition that you're exempted from? I think there is
There
something
are.
there. Tiffany.
There is some.
There are exemptions. in
But
there.
where do I stand going into a business to choose to spend my money and I am refused service because I cannot wear a mask?
Yeah,
Where is my legal protection? Where is another person's legal protection in that?
I understand that. I think obviously business owners, that is a decision that they're making for their own business, just like your business. You could do that in your business if you felt it appropriate to protect you from something. I guess it precludes you from going into certain businesses. If you can't wear the mask and they require that mask to be worn in their business, then I mean, I don't know, but I think that must preclude you. You may have to go somewhere else to do your business.
Curbside service, just as in your
Yeah, on a
business,
phone
is
call,
being
maybe, yeah.
given pretty much everywhere
Yeah.
throughout the United States right now. So
Well, I can
if
tell you,
don't-
if somebody tells me I have to wear a mask in their business and I cannot, I won't spend my money there, and I will not require it in my business. So
enough.
who, tell me, is supposed to enforce this?
Actually, the executive order by the governor, and we have attorneys in here, we have district attorneys in here, and I think by his own recognition, he
said-
basically stated that it is unenforceable. But I have people here that practice and study the law. I do not. But under this exemption, under L, it states in there individuals who cannot medically tolerate a face covering as an exemption. So it does exist. If you can't go inside a structure of somebody else's building, you do still have the right to have curbside service because you cannot tolerate because of a medical condition. And I printed these out with me here today so that I would have them to reference to. And this is actually the executive order. So it is in there, it states it.
Is there different?
So it is compliant.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
is there different requirements? So if you're in a wheelchair, going into a business, and you can't get through the door, do you have to get curbside? Is that how it works?
I
for a
think that's
wheelchair?
under
ADA,
part of ADA too,
ADA,
which
the-
ADA I think is also going to come under this. But
Yeah.
here again, I have two attorneys here. I'm not going to address. I'm
Well,
not
and
gonna
that's
speak
part of my
legally.
differentiation. So somebody comes in with a service dog, I'm not allowed to ask them what service, why do you need a service dog? I'm not allowed to ask that. As a business owner, I have to make reasonable accommodations for a person to enter the building in a wheelchair. Why are reasonable accommodations not made for people that cannot wear a face mask? Why
You
am
should
I
ask
still
for
not
it.
allowed to
Ask-
enter
ask
the
for it.
building?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think,
Ma-
I
make that
think it is. I
Excellent
think the
question. I
curbside
think-
service is
Yeah.
the
So
way it has been
I
spelled
would be
out.
sued if I told somebody in a wheelchair or with a service dog, you have to stay outside, I will provide you curbside service. And yet somebody like me is being told the same thing.
Well, why don't you ask for reasonable accommodations and let them know? And I would even show them a copy of the executive order. That subsection L does specifically exclude people that have medical issues with it. And, I mean, the ADA is long established with wheelchairs, but this kind of does fit under the same thing.
Sure.
And so, ask them for it. I mean, it is maybe not spelled out in the ADA that face coverings, just because this is kind of a new thing, that you'll be able to sue somebody for it. I don't know that you would be successful with that, but I think that if you ask for reasonable accommodations and you tell them that, then I think there's a strong likelihood that they might accommodate you and let you in.
I just get in a wheelchair and not have a mask on, then you got better.
That would probably work.
Either one's pretty bad.
Well,
It's complicated.
Thank you.
It's complicated, Tiffany, and it's not,
it is, and whatever standpoint our commissioners take on this, and whatever you guys do, I just ask that you protect business owners, you protect people in my situation, that I still get the same quality of service when I walk into a business as a person wearing a mask. I don't deserve to be told I have to stand outside because I have a medical condition.
All right,
That's not okay, that's not right, that's discrimination.
all right, thank you. We
Thank you guys
appreciate
for your
it.
time.
You're welcome. All right.
Rob Pope, 311 North Broadway. I think Tiffany was very charitable disclosing her medical condition. That's part of a privacy act that we don't have to talk about our medical conditions. I can't wear a mask either, and I'm not going to disclose why. And so for you to be interrogated why you're not wearing a mask is uncalled for too. And I just, they do make the exceptions for medical reasons. I don't have the answers how to handle that when you get ejected from someplace because you don't have a mask. But I just wanted to talk about not having to disclose your medical information to people. They have no right to know why you're not wearing one. If you say it's because of a medical reason, that should be plenty of information for them.
Thank you. Anybody else, public comment? Seeing none, we will close this portion of the public comment. We'll go to public safety with the sheriff office monthly report with Sheriff Allen.
Do you see this timer?
What?
It hasn't worked for anybody else.
Yeah, well, Commissioner, it actually went off twice on you.
I was just asking.
Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Let's see. I don't know if it's there or not. Nope.
What are you coming up with first, buddy?
Well, I'm trying to connect, and it's like,
Oh, you're not getting...
for some reason, I'm not connecting.
I'd give you this wire here if you'd like to utilize it.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Didn't come up. Gee whiz.
Jim knows how to hook you up.
Well, you know what? I have a plan B, so it's okay. I have plan B and C. It's not showing up. Yeah. See, it should, but it's not.
I guess this is a 10-minute break.
Take that off.
But those two trying to fix
See,
this up.
it's not there. Let me shred that. There it is. Okay, found
Be
it.
like me jumping down.
Ta-da! Plan
Get him
C
wired,
worked.
babe?
Plan C worked.
I got him wireless.
Wireless, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Connecting to
All
Steve.
right.
There we
Well,
go.
What the heck?
There you go.
Okay,
Way to go, Shaq.
here we go. Technology, I swear. Okay. For our total calls for service for the month of June is 1,914.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's gonna
1,900 and what?
14 calls
Is
for
that a
service
record?
just in the month. No, we're gonna break the record this year. I can tell you. It's just we're so busy day and night with calls, and it has just. I can tell you that we're dealing with a lot more mental health issues. We're dealing with a lot more violence than what we've ever had before. I can't put a finger on why. It's just the way that it is. But will we have, Senate Bill 217 that we're having to change a lot of our trainings and a lot of the way that we conduct business anymore. So a lot of decisions have to be made on whether or not, what type of action and how far we go, and trying to reduce the amount of situations that involve use of force. That's a big deal. And I'll tell you, it's just a different world for all of us now. And we're doing the best that we can with it. But we're out there day and night taking care of the community as best we can. We have, as far as our business checks and whatnot, we had 153 that were conducted last month. We had, as far as animal calls are up, both neglect and welfare checks on pets. 338 extra patrols that were done requested for different subdivisions, home residences, and the like. We have, right now we've had about 800 case reports that have been signed since and written since January 1. So we're going to probably have a record on the number of actual case reports that we'll be doing. The livestock at large and livestock on highways, they're actually two separate. Therefore, we've had 14 on each of those last month. As far as I want to get to domestic violence, this is where we're starting to see more of an increase as well, 11 just in the month of June. So we're having a couple, 2 or 3 a week, easy. I think it's just the situation that we're all in. Everybody is very tense, especially with this COVID-19, has just put a lot of people on edge.
So
it's
the
just the way
city
it
would
is.
be separate numbers, and so there could actually be more in the community than.
There is. In fact, Commissioner Candelaria was with me at the last Cortez Communications dispatch meeting that we had. Right now, we're leading the pack as we have 46%.
42.86% of the calls right now that are going out are through the Montezuma County Sheriff's.
Yeah.
36.17 are from the Cortez PD, and those are on the rise, is what they stated
Yeah.
at the communication
So-
meeting.
So we're trying to discuss and address issues when it comes to our dispatch center and how we can maintain a cost to the dispatch center itself and what it costs the county for the use of that dispatch center. But as you see, we're also opening up, when we get into the jail, I'll explain the different stages of opening up the detention center and what is still being denied and sent to the court. Traffic problems, as I think the county clerk had led to last month, was everybody is buying a car, okay? And we're busy with vehicle inspections as well as with traffic. Traffic conditions have really increased. 233 traffic stops just in the month of June. That's a record. Okay, that's a lot. And they're not just minor infractions that are causing that. But we've also had an increase in welfare checks on both juvenile and mostly adult, at-risk adults in the county. And so we're starting to see an increase across the board with a lot of these. And it's like vehicle identification inspections, verification, the VIN or a certified VIN inspection. I mean, that's a record, 54 of them just in the month of June, just for 30 days. And I know, I go over to the clerk's office and there's a line, okay? It's kind of crazy.
Is
so.
a lot of them RVs? I read that.
So, VIN inspections are only done at certain days of the month, so for him to have that many in just those 3 days, where a lot of other business or titles have to have VIN inspections daily, so those are done by licensed dealerships or the police department. So that's just the sheriff.
Sure.
And there are a lot of RVs.
Yeah, she's busy. We all are. As far as the report of the jail for the month of June, like I explained a couple months ago, I'm including transport information in here as far as prisoner transport, so that you have an idea of what we're doing. Even though we're down, last year, remember, we were extremely high in transports and just barely squeaked by with what with what I had budgeted for. So, and working closely with the district attorney about extraditions and stuff has become a real necessity. Here, just in the month of June, just to kind of bring it up from January to June, you can see where we dropped. Our total miles for the year is 17,525 miles just in transports. A total of almost 500 hours of deputy time. A lot of these transports will be single deputies unless we have a juvenile, which has increased, or a female, then there will be 2 deputies that are assigned for a transport. This is the cost as far as for per diem for their meals and hotels. For the year, total hotel cost $291, per diems $570. So there's a total cost so far from January 1 to June the 30th of $862 in just those costs for those deputy transports.
That doesn't include the cost of the automobile. That's
No,
just
it does
your,
not.
Yeah, that's not the
Add the
number of
fuel to
miles.
it.
Yeah,
Add
fuel
the
and
fuel
wear
to
and
it.
tear on, yeah. So
Yep.
it's considerably
So,
more.
and a lot of that comes out of the detention's budget and the fuel expense. That's where it comes from. And I don't know what will happen from now to the end of the year. I mean, nobody does with this pandemic, but we are holding pretty close. We had, I think it was a total of 54 prisoners in there for the month of June. We've had Dolores County had a total of 18 prisoners in there, 2 females, and 20 total prisoners that came in from Dolores County. Municipal arrests such as Cortez, Dolores, and Mancos have been none, mainly because the courts are still closed. So we had total confinement by departments is 53. This is the month, the day of the month through the month of June, and you can see what we've had held. It's probably the lowest numbers that we've had in a long time, but that's only because I've restricted what comes into the jail and what doesn't. It doesn't make a lot of people happy, but I can't see putting someone who is intoxicated, that has committed a crime, into the facility. That takes up room that we need to have for those that have been sentenced by the court, those that have been arrested on domestic violence or a protection order violation that are required to be seen by a judge, so they're brought in at that time. But it also leaves it available for the more serious crimes against people. That's the thing. If I don't have the room, then we're in a pickle, and we have to take somebody out of a holding cell that may have only been there for a few days, and to continue their isolation in a cell in the pod. And so it creates a real dilemma at times. But I'll tell you what, I'm real proud of the crew that we have, the deputies in the jail. They are following all the protocols and doing everything they possibly can to do it right, and protecting themselves at the same time. So we had 52 arrests and we had 40 releases, so that's not bad. They've been coming in and out. The total cost for the month of June for state, county, non-reimbursable prisoner costs is $109,000. For Department of Corrections, which we have 9 inmates, that is increasing, but they were billed in June $6,148. Dolores County with our 16 days was $1,200 were billed. So total cost is just over $116,000 for the month of June.
So just for a second there, Sheriff, on our meeting that we had, our business meeting with CCI on Friday, those Department of Corrections holds are actually going down. Did you get that?
You mean that they're accepting, or what?
No, that the price per day is going down.
Oh,
They've
really?
cut it, yeah, through the state. Instead of your 58.50 or whatever it is, 56.
58,
They've
56.
cut it by
58.
1%, and it's going down to 57.97. And that was through the budget summary that they gave us on the state's budget. So just as an FYI,
So that'll go down per day
It-
cost?
it's going
See,
down.
they haven't passed that yet, so I don't get it until I know it's been passed, and then I get it, okay?
Is
what
that going to
costs.
change
That's-
statutorily, or that's like a budget cut?
I think it's just a budget summary of what they're talking right
Yeah.
now through the JBC.
Yeah.
That is going to go down by that 1%. They have a whole laundry list of things that they're looking at right now that they're trying to cut to come within their, and they're giving us more unfunded mandates. So my next question to you
Yeah,
was going to
okay.
be, how, in the 3-year period of time that they've given us with Senate Bill 217, have you had time to put a pencil to that? What is it going to cost this county to even come close to complying with what's in 217?
Well, I mean, we could look, I can go back to each one of those costs and then figure what it should have been at $75 a day, okay? And that's what your difference loss is gonna be. They're not paying for what they should be paying for, like everybody else. And that causes, a situation within the county that the state's getting a deal and nobody else is.
Right, right.
Okay, that's not
Right.
right. But we're looking at those exact costs of what it costs to maintain that jail.
Yeah.
And that's where those cost estimates come from.
CCI should fight this.
Yes, they should.
And I
Well-
don't know if they're talking about changing the because it's statutory right now what that minimum is,
Mhm.
and they're allowed to increase it.
Yes.
And if, I'm scared if they change that in the statute, we should rally the troops and sue the state.
Yeah.
There you go.
It is an unfunded mandate.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
And so they need to increase it to double that.
Yeah.
not be, I get it, they need to be making budget cuts. That's what it sounds like they're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't a statutory thing. Maybe this is, hey, next year, we're gonna slice everything by 1%, and that's what they're claiming, and then statutorily, they're still obligated to pay us. But they'll claim that, because of the budget, they can't for a year, and maybe that's just temporary. But if they're actually going to draft a new statute and get it passed, CCI should be fighting that.
Yeah.
John, I have found that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, that's true.
I'll check in it with CCI to see the position, but this just came out as their budget summary through the state of what they're being presented. So I just wanted to make you aware of it.
Thanks.
As of Friday, this was one of the discussions that we had for lowering that 1%. So if you're not aware of it, you are now.
And it's arguably already an unfunded.
They always pass that legislative act about the cost of prisoner reimbursements, and usually in the month of July. So sometime this month, before
When
August,
their new budget,
we should
yeah.
be seeing something coming from them about where they have set that figure. And I'm like you, I don't think they can go down because costs haven't gone down. They will continue to rise. Our food costs still increase, okay? Even with the supply shortages that we had temporarily, it still costs, and our costs are going up just on the food supplies that didn't used to be. It's like a $20 increase on just about everything.
Yeah, food, yeah.
And it's just the way that we're having to deal with this. So I'm just reporting the figures to you, okay?
And I'm just giving you an FYI, just be aware
So,
that,
yeah,
and to you commissioners also, that was part of that.
Well,
that
and
budget summary.
And I know that every county sheriff that has a jail in the state, we're going through the same thing. Everybody's going through the
Yeah.
same thing with this.
Well, I think, Steve, I think that rings a bell. That's when I think these jail operators, you and other counties and other people in the state that are losing money due to the state, finally gather together and say, you know what? We're not going to have your, we're going to do it just like we did with the parolees. Say, you know what? If you aren't willing to pay our costs and what it costs us to operate this jail, then you're going to have to find something else to do with your prisoners.
Well, they have to pay their bill, just like we do, so.
Yeah.
There is DOC funding with relative speed to pick up inmates who have been sentenced to DOC, or are they taking a long time?
They're taking a long time.
How long is a long time?
It's generally anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks.
And compared to before COVID-19?
Before, it was generally about a week. They wouldn't keep them in here as long. But it's because of the COVID, and they're trying to manage those. Now, we were lucky. We got 7 taken out up to Denver last month, earlier. And so that really helped. But we're going to end up with more being sentenced, and that's just the way that it is. But the state needs to help cover those costs.
We might be able to throw this into that CARES Act funding for COVID relief. We might get those numbers
Well,
added.
We should try
I don't
to
know.
plug that in and say,
I
hey,
don't know.
we've got increased costs
That's
because
up
of
to you
COVID, because we're
guys.
holding
I don't
people
know
in
how that
jail
would work.
longer that we're not being refunded for.
I'll find out from Nola today.
Other jurisdictions are not coming to get folks too, right? And
Yeah.
incurring
Yeah.
those costs pursuant to COVID.
Right, we contribute to that problem too.
Yeah, we
Not
do.
getting our prisoners from them.
I know, and and it's true, because we want to make sure that who we take in is actually safe to bring in. But it doesn't negate the fact that they have to go into a quarantine situation in a cell before they're brought into a pod. So we are picking up major felonies and on writs to bring them, to extradite them and bring them in. So they're on the same boat as we are. We got to make sure that they tell us that they are free and clear of any virus, and then we do the same thing here. So, and vice versa. So that's why our courtesy holds are down to nearly nothing. We had one that we accepted temporarily while they were transporting to Arizona. So it's complicated, and it's dangerous at times. That's the thing that I find such a dilemma, is I'm trying to protect the deputies as well as all of the inmates in that facility from something you can't see. And that is what is the real balancing act. By August 1st, we've already dropped the level of felony down to a Class 6 felony for these last 2 weeks that can be brought into the jail and appear before a court or there for bonding. We still have mandatory arrests that we have to take care of at the same time. We are going to drop it down to, on August the 1st, that misdemeanors will be accepted. But the thing is that I still have a major issue with a protection order violation that is strictly an alcohol or drug violation of that protection order. When it's a crime against a person, it's different. But when you have someone who has a substance abuse issue, they're not going to stop. And so they're already in violation as soon as they leave. It's tough, you know? I mean, within 24 hours, they've already violated that protection order. It is a problem. I also wanted to let you know that we had a meeting with all of the agency heads and the hospital administrator, ER directors and whatnot a week and a half ago, and we discussed the issue that we have with transports. It's always been a courtesy situation where between the sheriff's office and the police department that we would rotate transports from the hospital to the detox center at Crossroads or to the mental health facility in Crossroads. And since Senate Bill 217 has come about, I have had to take a long look and hard look at everything. And these transports that are strictly medical and not a law enforcement issue, we're not going to do. I have to have a court order. The hospital can, doctors, nurses can also prepare and draw up an M5 mental hold, temporary hold, or Access can, even an M1. They can go through the district attorney's office. There's procedures that we talked about. Bring me a court order to cover my deputies' liabilities of transporting from the hospital to the Durango Crossroads, okay? We're not trained as medical staff, nor should we be, okay?
Well, doesn't the hospital have their own transport vehicles?
Yes, they do.
I mean,
yes, they do. And so does Access, but they
Yeah.
don't use them.
Well,
Access will not use those 2 vans that they have.
well, I would put my foot right squarely on their hand and
Exactly.
say, you know what, I'm not
And I have.
going to do this.
I have. We all
Okay,
have. We've
good
all
for you.
agreed that we're not going to transport
Good for you.
without a court order. That is to protect us and our taxpayers.
Well, you shouldn't be.
It is an issue, and they understand, and so things are starting to turn around to where they're either transporting or having Access transport, which is the way that it should be.
Sure.
We just can't take that liability on
And there's no
anymore.
reason for you to.
No.
That's not your jurisdiction or your,
I understand that. And it was a courtesy thing for years, okay? It's been that way for years. But the time has come that we have to look at, I have to protect us. And we can't do that, because if something were to happen within those 47 miles, all right, where are we at? You see what I'm saying? They're better off in an ambulance. They really are.
and plus it's a direct cost to you and your department, your staff and
Yeah.
your time, which you shouldn't be bearing that.
Exactly.
I mean.
So I just want you to know that that's what's happened, and in case you happen
Should
to
I say
hear of
about
anything.
time? Should we say about time?
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, you try to do what you can for everybody, but I'll tell you, I'm not getting the same thing, especially from Access. We still need an inpatient facility here. We still need a detox center here. I still can't get them to work that way. And I'll tell you that our citizens out here that are having to utilize that are frustrated and angry as ever. And I don't blame them, because it's not right. Our citizens here are not getting the treatment that they deserve and that they should get, okay?
Right.
And so unless something changes, we're going to have a real problem on top of a pandemic because of the mental issues that we're already having to deal with more and more. We get several a week, and I'm telling you, it is a stressful situation for the officers as well as for the people involved. It's something that we're trained for, but I'll tell you, we are more mental health workers at times than anything else. And we're just trying to keep people safe, but we have to try to avoid the use of force at all costs when it comes to that. They don't belong in the jail. In fact, it's unlawful for me to have anybody come in and be held in the detention center just on a mental hold. Can't do it. But I also, on the other hand, don't want officers trumping up charges to incarcerate somebody that doesn't need to be there. But we have those that are suffering that have committed serious crimes that are there now. I think, what do we have, 3 now, Will, that are waiting for placements? For competency, something like that. So it's starting to creep up there. We're getting more and more of those. So
Sheriff, who are we communicating with at Access to address these problems, or do I need to set
there's
up
a new
meeting?
director now.
Uh-huh.
Bernie Heath retired, and I can't think of her name right now. I've met with her a couple of times, but I think we just need to come to the table again and talk about this.
Well, would you like me to set up a meeting, or
I
are
would.
meetings already?
That would be great. And I think that the hospital would like to be involved in that as well. I really do. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I also want to throw something out there to think about increasing the cost or charge, the sheriff's fee for fingerprinting court-ordered fingerprints. We're starting to get more now because the Cortez Police Department is not fingerprinting anybody. That has to come, I think, a fee set by resolution. But I'd like you to look at it, John, if you could.
Where does it come from right now? I mean,
Right now, it's set at the sheriff's fee. It's always been $10. So
What are you suggesting it be raised to?
just at least $20 for court ordered. We always charge the $10 for the DNA and fingerprinting, but now the courts are sending just the regular fingerprints without DNA requirements or to the sheriff's office. Well, it's actually directed to the police department, but the city attorney is saying that the county judge can't order the police department to do the fingerprints, so they all come to us. So unfortunately, the sheriff is the one that everybody dumps things on, okay?
I mean,
And so
increasing fees that criminal defendants have to pay isn't a great way, I don't think.
It is,
to
and it
collect
is.
money, because
Yeah.
they're all indigent getting out of jail. I mean, really,
Yeah.
this should be, if the courts are requiring it, in my opinion, the courts should be paying for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, they're not going to get paid.
yeah.
Can you
We're-
do that? Can you put that back on the court? Could
Well,
if
we
they
need the
said-
legislature to do that, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'll look into where these fees come from.
Yeah. It's something to look at.
Yeah.
Because we're spending a whole lot more time on fingerprinting for court-ordered fingerprints than what we've ever done before. That they're paying a $10 fee, which is what it's always been set at, but we're spending a lot more time and we're not getting that reimbursement really the way it should be. So I thought I would just ask for you to think about or look at, and I don't even know if there's anything we could do, but
My guess is it's statutory, and it came from the state, and it's in some statute somewhere, but I don't know, maybe Will knows.
well, I was looking under Title 30 and I didn't see
For
that.
certain crimes, I'm
Yeah.
understanding that the court is mandated to order fingerprints. Historically, the court has used the arresting agency as the place where they kept the fingerprints.
Yeah,
So a lot of times at the city, I'm not aware of what
yeah.
the attorney is saying they should go. I think the court has jurisdiction to say, you go to this place to get fingerprints.
That's what they've done.
If they're being turned away and they keep then violating the court's order, the court.
Where's the fee come from, though, Will?
Get a fingerprint wherever you can.
But where's the fee come from, that $10 fee? I mean, that's what I was assuming was statutory.
I don't think that's part of the statute. That's not part of the, that I'm aware of, it's not part of the mandated cost scheme that they have for every criminal offense. I don't think it's included in that. I think it's up to the agency to decide what that costs.
Yeah.
So who orders that, though? Probably there's a statute that says you need to get fingerprinted
Yeah.
when you're arrested.
Right.
Therefore, it's an unfunded mandate if the state's not paying for it. And
It's
so,
not when you're arrested necessarily. There are certain offenses now with our summons use that you get a ticket for, but you're still required to get fingerprinted.
Yeah.
right. But if the law requires you to get fingerprinted, the state's got to come up. The state makes a law that says,
Right,
do
right,
this,
says you
the
gotta
state
do
should
this,
pay
so
for
That's
it.
right, the state. Man,
So-
they ride us like a rented mule, man.
Pretty much. Any other questions, commissioners, for the sheriff? Thank you, Sheriff, we
Sure,
appreciate it.
thanks.
Go get it. Go get it if you can.
I will
Just
if
change
I
it and do
can.
it.
I see coroner's report is next. Shaq, do you have an update? I don't see the coroner here.
I don't see him either, so he could, this would be the only meeting he's missed, so I'm guessing he's on a call somewhere.
All right. Yeah, he's very to the point. So, district attorney's report. Will first.
Thank you. So, in reading the governor's order, I'm allowed pursuant to Part 2, M8, to remove my mask as I'm giving a speech. So I will do so. I don't like wearing these either. But I just wanted to comment on a couple things that the sheriff spoke about. And then if it pleases the body today, I'd like to read a prepared statement. First, I do want to note that despite the rising 1,000 some odd calls the sheriff received, about 937 of those were for cats in trees. So I think crime is on the decrease in this county. Kidding, it's a joke, not really well received apparently.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Some of the issues that the sheriff spoke of that I wanted to follow up on, restraining orders. The judge, Chief Judge Walker issued a mandatory arrest bond schedule where certain people, if they're charged with certain crimes, get automatically released, even when, as protection orders require, they are required to be arrested. So if you have a protection order and you violate it allegedly, you have to get arrested and you have to then have a bond set by a judge. Now the judge can preset the bond pursuant to his or her bond schedule, but historically protection orders have been one of those crimes where the defendant's presence is required in court. I have asked Judge Walker to make a modification to his bond schedule that allows those who are picked up on drug or alcohol protection order violations, like the sheriff was talking about, be released immediately so we're not housing those people indefinitely, because the sheriff is absolutely right. Someone who's struggling with drugs or alcohol is going to be in there again and again and again. Such is why we have discontinued, as crazy as this seems, some time ago, mandatory drug testing through pretrial services for drug offenders. Didn't make any sense to test an addict every day because guess what? They wouldn't test or they would test hot. So to have that policy in place while it's well reasoned and well intentioned didn't make sense. So the judges saw people coming in and out of the jail, and so we all agreed that that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so we discontinued that part of the process. Extraditions, we are seeing a lot of WebEx appearances through or by county jails and other parts of the state, including DOC. We've had a couple post-conviction matters that generally the sheriff might have had to go get them and bring them here for a hearing. We're doing that by WebEx. One of the positive things of this COVID-19 situation is the use of technology. Our courts are doing that more and more, which is a good thing. The Chief Judge issued a revised COVID-19 policy last week, has some mandates in there, including social distancing, number of people in the courtroom, use of masks. We thought he was going to make us all come back to court, but he kind of backtracked on that and changed his mind, which I'm thankful for. I think that the courthouse is an extremely high-risk place for my deputies, public defenders, anyone who frequents that building because of the clientele that's in there, where they're coming from, and just the small, kind of confines of those courtrooms that we have. So the judge said, continue to use WebEx. We encourage you to do that. And there are certain hearings for which the defendant has to appear with their face displayed on the WebEx, not just calling in or using their voice. The public defenders have issued a statewide letter to all judges indicating their reluctance to come back to court as well. They cite, the risk that their folks are in. I've also noticed a story out of Bernardino, California, that talked about the DA office having a big infection that came from the courthouse. So all those who are officers of the court are very mindful of the situation and responding accordingly. We still do not have jury trials until August 3rd. There have been some jurisdictions that have sought and received waivers from the Supreme Court to hold county court trials. What they're doing in Colorado Springs is they have plexiglass everywhere. They have people wearing masks. They have jurors coming in a very spaced out way, and they've had some luck in completing a county court trial, I believe 2 weeks ago, pursuant to that waiver. But by and large, we are not seeking a waiver. We're going to be going back to trial on August 3rd, and we'll be ordered to wear masks and have social distancing during that trial, except when the defendant has to show his or her face and witnesses doing the same thing, things like that. Domestic violence is a type of crime that requires mandatory arrest. We are seeing a big reduction in arrests for other types of crime because there's an interest in not having those folks come to jail and possibly infect the jail. I think that's a good thing. I think that's something that should have happened a long time ago, irrespective of COVID-19, and I'm hopeful that trend will continue in the future. Domestic violence, however, does require an arrest. It requires then the issuance of protection order that's meant to ensure the safety of that victim. Those cases, every Monday we have at least 6. Over the weekend we have lots of domestic violence cases, both misdemeanor and felony, and by no means is that rate declining. The DOC issue, just real quickly, I know that there was a policy in place that we're not going to honor DOC holds. And by and large, with regards to the funding that we would be getting for those holds, I don't disagree with that policy. But there are some instances that you guys might want to consider and have a sit down with the sheriff and myself and frankly a member of DOC that could help recoup some of the costs for someone who would be in jail on a local charge, who would then also be in jail on a DOC hold, and then you could recoup some of those costs. So if you're paying for someone who's committed a crime here anyway, and then they're on a DOC hold, you can at least offset some of those costs through DOC. So it might not be.
Does that happen quite a bit? Is that a regular?
So their holds have gone down, and I've had an explanation from a local DOC representative that they're not holding people unless they have new charges or some other really egregious offense. Which is different than what they used to do. So there are instances when I feel like the county could financially benefit from saying, okay, we'll hold this guy or this gal, but not necessarily everyone. So I think maybe looking at it a case-by-case basis might be something the county should consider as a way of recouping some of those costs. We are operating largely online for court appearances. There are some times when we come into court because the hearing itself is just too complicated to do via WebEx. It's not that effective of a evidence presentation, or we have a witness who can't appear via WebEx and we want to be there with him or her to do that. And then, our victim advocates and our investigators are going out into the public, meeting with people with PPE gear and safety protocols in place, but certainly at great risk to their health. And we have not had any instances of infection at this time. So that's all a good thing. I will report that I had it. I had it in March. I traveled out of state when I was kind of a non-believer of COVID, and was infected my wife, my child. Luckily for us, it was a pretty minor case, and from what we're reading, we have some reason to believe that we are immune for a little while, or at least better equipped to fight the virus. But it is something that has personally affected me and my family, and I'm not one of those numbers on the county sheets because my antibody test isn't counted. It's just considered. But anyway, just food for thought there.
Can I ask you, Will?
Sure.
what your caseload is for the last 4 months compared to your caseloads last year. Could you give kind of a rough estimate of where you're at as far
I
as
think it's pretty similar.
Okay.
I think, with the reduction of penalties and severity of charges and drug offenses, they've reduced some other type of offenses that have a mitigating circumstance for those with mental health issues. I think we're seeing about the same amount of cases. We do continue to kind of struggle with how we're going to deal with local drug and alcohol problems. And, this discussion about transport to Crossroads, which is one of the only facilities nearby, the costs that are associated with that, the cost of holding a mentally ill or drug-afflicted person in jail, those are huge when totaled over time. And I think they give rise to a discussion that probably should occur among stakeholders as to whether or not the county wishes to invest in a local facility like that, be it a detox, be it an inpatient, be it something that can take those people out of the criminal justice system at savings to the county and at an added benefit to the offender, because those issues are issues that give rise to crime, and that's pretty plain and clear. And so those types of cases are very much on the rise, be it methamphetamine. We have a huge influx of drugs in the county, and certainly alcohol contributes to the vast majority of cases, certainly domestic violence.
So your DV cases, do you have a percentage of how much they have increased in the last 4 months?
I'd be happy to get that for you. I don't have that in front of me, but I can say that they've remained steady. We've not certainly seen a reduction of those. And then, there are a lot of very serious misdemeanor offenses. Assault on a pregnant woman as an act of domestic violence is a misdemeanor. So, there are a lot of areas where the law could treat domestic violence more seriously. We have a lack of domestic violence treatment offenders. Our last one just left the area. We have a new one who's resistant to taking certain kinds of cases. And so we are at odds with the need for treatment when it comes to local providers. I think it's all I have on just kind of the update and follow-up on the sheriff's report. Can I answer any other questions about?
Yeah.
Sure.
What's the activity at our new courthouse out there? Is the parole department, are they still operating out of that, or has it basically?
Out of the courthouse?
Yeah.
I'm unaware of the parole department working out at the courthouse. I know that probation and parole meet regularly. I know that I'm part of a team that monitors sex offenders who works in tandem with parole officers and probation and other community stakeholders. I don't think there's a parole office necessarily in the courthouse. At least I've not seen one.
Probation has a bunch of offices.
Probation
Yeah.
has a lot of offices back
So
there.
That's what I meant to say. Are
Sure.
they still actively going to their office, meeting with people, or
Yes, they have, well, somewhat. People are allowed to come into their office, they're allowed to go to the window, they have meetings with them, but by and large, their pre-sentence investigation reports, which occur before, someone gets sentenced, those are conducted by phone now. A lot of their, what used to be face-to-face dialogue with offenders is now over the phone. So they have reduced that. Some folks are either, I think there's a couple furloughs and/or the requirement to work from home. So they are not in the office like business as usual by any means. And same with, the judicial, according to their administrator, has sustained some pretty big cuts. They've lost a magistrate position that used to preside over our juvenile cases here, and they've lost funding for clerks and judicial assistants, et cetera. So they're, from what I've seen, and I don't mean to be, I'm not happy to see anyone's budget cuts, but I'm at least somewhat relieved to see budget cuts being across the board versus, county only. And so certainly we've seen those cuts there. But I just wanted to say one thing. I've had a chance to exchange some emails with Shaq and with John, and other members of our county. And, you know, this issue that's later in the agenda, if I may address a little bit now under my update with the DA's office.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, we saw the emotion by a public speaker here earlier, and I think that emotion is shared on both sides of this issue. This is a huge and utterly unique social issue that I've ever encountered in my lifetime. And generally speaking, it is not in my interest to wade through the political thicket of issues of the day, right? Especially when those issues and opinions are at odds with you guys, right? I mean, it is not in my interest to bemoan policies implemented by the county, because at the end of the day, I have my hand out asking you to accommodate my budget, my people, and my work. And we have had a very good relationship through the years, and last year, you guys, you all thankfully accommodated a budget that included an increase for a new lawyer I've been asking for many years, and I am utterly appreciative of the accommodations across the hall, and I think we have a really good thing going, and I think that we both are cognizant of the finite resources that come with the county. And being a county-funded department. Now, I'm not a county employee, but I am, per statute, a recipient of your funding. And so it's not my desire to personally offend anyone today. It's not my desire to speak in a way that is inflammatory or detrimental to you all, because I think we're all doing what we think is right. And I've always honored and respected that. I wanted to speak a little bit about the executive order, this mask mandate. The state has noticed some rising numbers in the COVID-19 cases and deaths, and the governor issued Executive Order D 2020-138. It talks about the amendments to some old orders and requires medical or non-medical face coverings in all indoor spaces, with a large number of exceptions. Now, we did hear an individual today talk about her lack of accommodation for medical situations, but that is plainly written in the order, as well as someone's age and the activity that they are endeavoring at the time of that mask mandate. I believe, as district attorney, someone who is sworn to uphold the laws of Colorado and the Constitution of both Colorado and the United States, that the governor's recent order was lawful and that it passes constitutional muster. Doesn't mean it's without controversy. And in my opinion, as a resident of this community of Dolores, a father to a 3- and 5-year-old, a husband to a soon-to-be school teacher, a grandson to a 94-year-old grandmother, I think that this order is not only lawful, but it makes sense. And I know that's not an opinion shared by everyone in this room. It is without controversy, however, from what I've read, both medical and non-medical masks assist in the reduction of the spread of COVID-19. Now, I confess the data on how much the virus is reduced by that mask wearing is up to debate, and there's not a consensus as to what that reduction looks like, but there is no controversy that masks help. And I'm charged with the administration of justice and the laws of Colorado. And there is also no question that we live in a world that we are without the freedom to do whatever we want. You know, the term free country is certainly a misnomer when we look at all the laws on the books and the policies that we are forced to live with. And this county, this board, my office, the sheriff, has taken part in an active role in the making of and the enforcement of laws that affect and mitigate our liberties. Currently, we're prohibited from the act of burning pursuant to a fire ban. We are forced to evacuate our homes and property, even when we don't want to, when wildfires threaten our safety. Our food service businesses are required to adhere to certain basic standards of health. We are precluded from traveling down certain county roads and accessing certain parts of the county. We are responsible for the damages our pets and domesticated animals may cause to life and property. We must seek permission from the sheriff to conceal our firearms. We cannot consume drugs or alcohol in public places or while driving county vehicles or on the job, and the list goes on and on. These types of laws, policies, and ordinances have a direct effect on our liberty. And in all candor, I have not heard the sheriff or members of this board decry those ordinances. And I believe that those types of policies I've just described have a far greater impact on our liberties than briefly wearing a mask while we are indoors, a order purposed behind protecting those who are around us. Now, we live in Montezuma County, and I do so on purpose, as all of us do, and we're lucky. We reside in the most beautiful place imaginable, surrounded by mountains and high desert. We deliberately live far away from the loud, congested streets of downtown Denver, and we fight for a way of life completely unknown to the city dweller. And relevant to this discussion, we've been lucky to avoid the sort of COVID-19 contagion we see in metro areas to the north and to the Indian lands to the south. But this luck may not be sustainable. I humbly suggest this board provide its community with leadership and solutions that will ensure human health and economic vitality. The mask mandate is meant to protect our friends and neighbors. It is purposed behind getting to a place of social and economic normalcy faster than we would if we didn't have it in place. And it's not meant to last forever. I believe following this order will help reopen schools, businesses, and our economy at large. I'm begging people here today to be good neighbors in ways that Councilmember Manuel Hart begged you all to be. Our friends to the south and other parts of the country are suffering in ways unimaginable to us in Montezuma County. Let's take steps, however inconvenient they may be, to help the situation and not make it worse. With regard to enforcement, this came up earlier in the meeting today. The executive order that I just discussed, while scientifically sound in my opinion, is utterly toothless. It is unenforceable. Unlike public health orders that I can enforce criminally and that folks can seek civil remedies for, the executive order has no mechanism in place or statute in place that describes its penalties or possible punishments for disobeying it. So in some ways, a recent proclamation made on social media was accurate. Montezuma County will not be enforcing the face mask order only because there is no mechanism to do so in place. There was a deliberate decision made by the governor to not make this enforceable. He did not make it a public health order on purpose. Based on his words and suggestions by his staff, this is meant to seek voluntary compliance. It's not meant to be a time where we are arresting people or fining people or suing people for disobeying his order. And the hope is, that's complemented by studies, that people will voluntarily do things, not because they risk penalty or punishment, but because they think it's the right thing to do, and they'll do it without a consequence. Now, there was talk in this order, both during a speech she made or a meeting, as well as the order itself, that talks about issuing trespass citations when the mask order is violated inside a place of business or another building. But that lawful ability for business owners to tell someone to leave has always been there. That's not adding to our laws. It's not supplementing any current laws in any meaningful way. It's just kind of stating the obvious. And while I understand and empathize with folks who are turned away from businesses, I think that the rights of that business owner ought to be the rights that we as a county meaningfully enforce or at least respect and adhere to. I encourage all members of law enforcement to appropriately respond to offenders who threaten the health and safety of our businesses and buildings. And if someone tells someone to leave, they should leave or risk citation and or arrest for trespass. We must do all we can to protect those who endeavor to make a tough living in this fragile retail and restaurant economy. Telling these hardworking, tax-paying folks who hire and care for employers that Montezuma County will not offer them protection under the law is an insult to them. Even if our action in this instance, with regard to the mask order, means being quiet and allowing citizens to make their own decisions about the law without distraction through social media, that would be a huge help. What has motivated me to speak on this issue today has to do with something we share in common. This board, the county manager, and myself share the common responsibility to care for our employees and staff. We operate under both state and federal law with regard to their health and safety and implement policies we believe are in the employees' and community's best interests. Since the genesis of this virus, my office has attempted to act quickly with work-from-home requirements, limiting shifts so as to accommodate social distancing, generous accommodations for those who are high risk or struggle with daycare, schooling, or for those who express valid concerns about the spread of COVID-19 in their homes. Now, last week, the impetus for all of this came with a private conversation with an employee who expressed their concern about my office policies. They said they live with an immuno-challenged significant other, they are in frequent contact with their elderly family, and frankly, they don't feel safe working in my office. I listened to what they had to say, and I reviewed the policies that I had set in place back in March. And frankly, I found his concerns to be valid. So on July 15, 2020, much to the dismay of many employees who find my response to the situation to be heavy-handed or paranoid, I changed my policies yet again. Not because I'm sycophantic to Governor Polis, or because I want to have a popularity contest in the office, or win a popularity contest in the office, and not because I enjoy wearing a mask. This thing is a pain to wear, I'll be honest. But it's because it's the least I can do to try and ensure the safety of the flock that I shepherd. I was disheartened when I received Shaq's email that the county would not require its employees or occupants of the buildings here to abide the lawful order of our governor. This email, which reflects an expressed policy, is why I'm here today speaking about this issue at risk of irritating our fellow board members. I am not a county employee. My staff is separate and distinct from the county. We operate under a separate set of policies and rules of employment, but we are neighbors to this board and to its staff and employees. We are directly adjacent to a place where high-risk, at-risk children meet with their caseworkers, where indigent, high-risk individuals come to seek financial assistance, and where members of local government are not required, if not encouraged, to violate an order purposed behind community safety. For years, we've appreciated the way the county has accommodated our budget requests and housed our office within its county buildings. But to be frank, if the policy of the county is one that violates the executive order, I have to, in order to protect my staff and employees, potentially find new office space or find different ways to ensure their health and safety. That is the last thing I want to do.
I think I can address that for you, Will. I believe that since you are the elected official over there, that you've already made the policy to protect your employees the way that you seem fit, and I think it would be a non-issue.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and you know, I think that certainly the autonomy that comes with my position is one that this board has always respected and acknowledged. But what I'm asking for is a little more than that, and I'll finish with this. I'm asking that the county retract its email sent on Friday, July 17th, and if anything, simply remain silent on the issue of executive orders. Because we share airspace, physical space, etc., while I may have the right and autonomy to impose my own policies, they are directly interfered with and contradicted by the email sent on July 17th. I don't think it's a huge ask. I don't wish to make threats that frankly are going to be hard to do or to act on if policies or that email is not redacted and retracted. But I'm asking the folks here today, including our administrator and our board today, that they simply remain silent on the issue of executive orders, acknowledge what the governor himself has said, that they are unenforceable, and by remaining silent, help maintain the safety and welfare of our employees and our hardworking business owners who want that mask order in place so that they are not demonized by their own request for that mask. The order helps insulate those people from public insult and from public assault in some cases. And I'm asking the county, if anything, to express its action through silence. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. First,
Yeah.
Which floor of the building is your department located in?
We are on the third floor.
Is anybody else, any other department on the third floor with you?
We have an open airway stairway between the second and third floor, so yeah, we get visitors from other departments all the time.
Okay. And you can require visitors to your department to wear or not wear a mask, can you not?
That's right. And if I could just, I'll pass out my policies so you guys just have a sense of what they look like.
And how is the virus COVID-19 understood to be spread at this point?
Airborne as well as touch surfaces.
I think my understanding is that it's airborne through droplets.
That's right.
Which would be the saliva or water in the human mouth. Is that water heavier than air?
You know, the debate that you're trying to engage me in right now about the spread of COVID-19 is not one that I'm going to endeavor. Instead, I'm going to just ask again that the county simply remain silent on the issue of the executive order and not encourages employees to break the law. My office is a little different than yours in that I am charged with the administration of justice and the imposition of the law, and so I can't tell my employees to break the law. I would be at odds with my oath. And frankly, I think that the county administrator ought to be honoring the oath also taken by our county commissioners that equally require the honoring and upholding of that law. And if the county wishes to simply state that the law will be ignored, then in my opinion, that oath has been violated, and those individuals who feel that way, if it's so strongly, ought to resign.
So my point with that is that the virus is not going to defy gravity and make its way upstairs
So
to
we also have
your
recirculated
office.
air in this building. We also have a number of ways that my folks are having to come in and out. We greet people by virtue of our lack of security at the third floor, downstairs at the Human Services Department. We have to meet people at the front door. We have people coming into our office, all because we do not have an insulated and secure facility like most DA offices have. And so we have to live with that. We've asked for accommodations on the east side of the building that have been somewhat met, but not really. And so if you wish to engage with me in a debate about the safety and welfare of the DA's office, separate from the COVID-19 issue, I'm happy to do that and provide my recommendations as to what should occur with our office, but it has largely been unmet. And so this email that you sent on Friday adds insult to injury.
And I would like to further address that you've been our district attorney almost 8 full years now. And this is the first time I've received an email that passionate or heard a speech that passionate in front of the commissioners. Where was all of this passion when it came to the substance abuse and mental health disorders we've been facing for the last 7.5 years? Where was this passion and this kind of rally for the victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence? How come we don't see this passion until a political issue arises?
You're speaking out of turn, sir, and I believe that.
So I think we can stop this right now, guys. We're way out into the weeds again. We don't need to do this. This is exactly what is going on in our nation right now. There is a wedge and a crack, and this is what's happening everywhere, and this saddens me. We live in a great nation. We need to learn how to agree to disagree. We need to get along. So as we discuss this further, Will, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
But I don't think we need a debate right here today.
I agree.
My opinion, I mean, that's just my opinion. We have 2 other commissioners here, and I do not want to start getting our personnel at odds.
Perfect.
So,
And I just want to say, I think that we can accommodate you. Again, you are the elected official. Those employees are under your purview, and I believe that you can be accommodated. I know the accommodation is where you started from over there, and then you even had to rent a building, or better. Maybe they're not the best, but we've tried in the last 7.5 years.
I agree.
So-
And, you know, I think that our placement in the upper part of this building has been great. All of my folks are under one roof for the first time ever. I appreciate that. We have had an ongoing discussion about security, and there's been, you know, measures put in place to prevent people from coming in the west side of the building. But there still is, there still are ongoing issues related to how we can contact and engage with the public, but yet still be safe and secure in a building that houses law enforcement who are uniquely at risk of retaliation, et cetera. We've been fine so far. I can't say the same about a lot of other DAs in the state or judges who have been affected violently, but I appreciate what you guys are doing. That's not the source of my frustration today. And I appreciate your sentiment as well.
And I understand that. So I would, maybe not today, but if you do have those recommendations for
Sure.
us that we look at, obviously we're looking at different budget situations for us also, but not to say, as Commissioner Sukla said, that we can't accommodate something to make it better so that our people, every employee here is our people. And I take that very seriously, and I definitely want to make sure that we can make the best work environment that we can provide for them. So I would, at your convenience, like to discuss that and/or just see what your list is so we can see how we can start looking and prioritizing those.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, emergency manager. Hello, Jim. Jim, could you tell everybody who you are up there on TV land?
Oh. Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Jim.
Kim, John, and Shaq. Well, I got some good news. You want to hear some good news?
Sure.
There's no fire.
Nice. That's great.
We're good.
And we had a quarter of an inch of rain.
And we had a little rain.
Yeah.
The fires, yeah. So I've been sending you a brief report weekly so you can just have a look at what's going on. So nothing's all of a sudden new in 1 month. But the latest that's ongoing now, of course, is this governor's order, which we're going to discuss, you're going to discuss after I'm done, I think. We're still working with the business task force, and I'm working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're still working on getting, implementing our social, our mental health issues out there, trying to get the businesses up and running, the economic health as well. So we're still working with that on our team. Even though we don't have an emergency ops center with a whole big MAC group running anymore, we still have small groups working out there trying to, build, helping the community. So we're still posting a lot of timely information, a lot of questions out there from the public on what to do and what this order means. So we're trying to get some of that information out. We did assist Toyac. There was 1,261 tests that were done out in Toyac. We haven't got the results back yet, but it worked really well.
And those were retests, correct?
They were test and retest, yes. I think they were retesting a lot of their employees and then the same public, yeah.
So a question I have is, if it's a retest, does the numbers keep continuing up for negative test and positive test?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It'll depend on whatever their results are on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had 209 2 weeks ago, this day, and we ended up with what, four? Two or four?
Two.
Three. How about that?
Sure.
I got three right there. So that's the answer. Yeah, it was in between both of us, right? So the last big fire we had, 22 acres, it didn't take much. It's undetermined, but it's pretty determined. Yeah, somebody was mowing their grass, and we're pretty sure that was the cause. And it took off, I mean, like lightning, and then the winds shifted. So it's still pretty dry out there. Even though the moisture levels are coming down, we're looking okay. Total of about 16 fires in the county, 6 of which were pretty good size. And then on that, with the sheriff's help and the DFPC and the Forest Service and everybody jumping in, is an outstanding effort, including the cost, which is pretty much zero to the county, which I'm very pleased to announce.
$216 or something.
200, yeah. That was food that I helped the volunteers with at $271. And then, of course, the sheriff's overtime on a lot of these fires. He's got some costs there, I'm sure. But otherwise, we've been working really well at trying to keep that down. And let's see, the COVID costs are $168, $429 now. So it went up once they paid all the bills. So that's pretty good. That's lower than I thought we would have. We're going to have a testing event today, as a matter of fact, from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock at the hospital at the EMS line, one single lane. So we're going to do some more testing there. Current cases, I think, is here, but we are up to 92 cases positive, 2730 negative. We now have 3 deaths, and then one with 3 from COVID, 1 with COVID. It wasn't a COVID-related death. We have 64 recovered and 24 active cases. So on the COVID side, we're gaining a little ground, but I mean, compared to the rest of the nation, I think we're doing okay, personally.
It's pretty manageable.
So far.
Are there any in the hospital, or are
I
any of
haven't-
these cases?
I don't know.
You don't know any of
No.
that? Zero? Okay. That's good to know. I mean, it's good to know if we're getting cases that are having to be hospitalized or
Right,
not, because
right.
that's really the kind of the test of the metal, whether we've got the capacity to handle that.
Correct.
And obviously, we do, so.
And then my office of 1 is, we're actually of 3. Still got 2 National Guards running around.
Do you?
Yeah, they've moved up to August 5th. They're going to have to leave. So, and I didn't request any further assistance until we see what the schools do and everything. So I can pretty much handle the logistics and planning side now. But they've done an outstanding job. Hazard mitigation plan, I submitted the second quarter documentation for reimbursement, and I also added in a third quarter yesterday. So we're up to about $18,371 was approved, and just yesterday, $4,649 was approved, and my math means we're close to $23,000 that we're going to get. So that's good on the hazard mitigation plan. Yeah. And we've already met our in-kind, so we're not having to pay any more than what we had talked, whatever Mike talked about, the $3,100, I think, that we have to pay. So we made our match, our in-kind, so everything's good. The emergency manager performance grant, I've got first and second quarters in. There's a paperwork interesting glitch, but they've solved it. So we should be getting back around $18,609 for this year. We've already received about $6,400 from last year, this year. So money's coming in. I did an after-action report, so part of the requirement of some exercises that we needed to do, and we can't do exercises because we're too busy doing the real thing. So with the real thing, I did an after-action plan for the East Canyon fire and also the COVID-19, and they accepted them. So they're good for the grant funding that we're getting. So that's kind of where we're playing. The emergency ops plan, I'm still working on getting a decent one, and then we'll start looking at that here in the next 8 months or so. Resource mobilization plan I'm working on. Inventorying all the equipment that we have that we can utilize in any kind of disaster. And then, of course, I ordered some equipment, some more PPE in June, and I just ordered another set of PPE yesterday for the schools, because they're going to need something, I'm sure. And one school's already requested various items of PPE, and we've got items ready for any kind of surge, but we want to make sure we have enough for the school. So I just ordered.
Have they came up with what the teachers have to wear yet? Or is that still up?
There is a guidance.
I haven't heard.
And then they were on, the governor gave out a media-only talk, which I didn't get on yesterday, on the requirement for the schools. I don't know if anybody got on that. But I tried to get the Cortez School, got on it and tried to listen. And then the governor should bring out the rest of our stuff, or let us know, I hope, today or in the next couple of days. So we'll have good guidance on that.
Are they still on track for starting the school year in late August or mid-August?
That's what I'm hearing on all of our 3 school districts, yeah. I haven't heard a change yet, but I'm working with them right now, so I'm trying to get more information and help them out with that, see where we're headed. And then, of course, documentation. The world goes around with documentation. All the meetings we have and all the documentation, it's all getting filed and put somewhere. So if you ever want to know anything that's going on, just let me know. All the MOUs that the county has, I'm up to 24 IGAs, MOUs, and MAAs. And then I just received packets of more from planning. So I'm collecting them all. I'm trying to organize them and see what we need to redo and which ones are we just file because they're road agreements or something. So hopefully in a few months I'll have that down, and then we can start putting together some new MOUs or IGAs, you know, with the board can sign or look at and see if we need to renew them or not. It makes sense to me.
I think
So,
it's a great idea. I appreciate you doing that. I received your email that you probably sent to all the department heads. If I were you, I'd personally contact each department head and bug them and say, yo, you look through all of your file cabinets, whatever else, because
Right.
we don't know about half the MOUs and IGAs we have.
Correct.
So I'd personally bug each of them to do that.
Yep.
You're not going to uncover them all.
Kim and I have already gone over it, and yeah.
Kim's
I'm
going
work-
to be a great resource.
Yeah, and I think there should be a central place, and that's when Shaq said, well, I guess you're it, and I said, good. So I think there's a central place we can organize it and keep track of these so we don't run out, and then get John involved in, you know, all the legal stuff and see what we need, so. So that's what we're working on, and then, of course, drills and training, and we did have a fire drill. I don't remember when, 2 days? Friday. We had a fire drill, and it worked good, so that was the only drill that we had so far, and then in the trainings and various meetings, of course, we're on all kinds of meetings. I was with the fire group today and the core fire management of our area, and basically everybody in the area has had 3 fires or 4 fires, just spot fires, a couple of lightning strikes under 1/10 of an acre, and they're knocking it out right away. Our area, we had, I think, 3 over this last week, but I mean, they were knocked out right away by Forest Service. We're looking at the moisture content right now, and for the next.
moisture
Huh?
content?
Yeah,
I said there is moisture
right?
content?
Yeah, which is not,
We're
is
trying to find it.
non-existent, right? And we're hoping that, I had it here just a minute ago.
Is that in the single digits?
It's yes. But we are getting some recovery at night because of the cloud cover, some of the moisture in the cooler. We're recovering with the RH. So during the day, I'm hopeful that even if we get some strikes, and there's that report, that's what I was looking for right here. It moved up to very high for July 22nd, only because of some of the factors. So the latest one I got this morning, which is right here, it actually shows the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd at very high active fire danger in the orange. And then it goes back down to the 2 lows and 2 moderates that we're going to have in there. So all of the fire experts, which I'm not, were on the call today, and they're hoping by July 29th, they're hoping to start looking at their fire restrictions in the Forest Service lands and BLM lands, and we're all going to start looking at those restrictions and maybe lighten up a little bit on them based upon some of these statistics. So that's what I heard this morning. But some, like Mountain Ute and even our area, are like, well, let's just see what it looks like by July 29th, because we're right in the red zone. So we're not doing anything rash just yet. But that's kind of their plan. Everybody's getting a little bit of rain, but not enough. So hopefully everything's going to be wonderful. No spike of COVID, right? No more fires, and we can move ahead. So.
Any
Sounds
questions,
good to me.
Commissioner?
No, just,
All right.
Thank you, Jim, for the report.
yep.
Public lands, we
Thank
have Connie Clemenson and Derek Padilla. So however you guys would like to do that, that's up to you. But good morning
Good morning.
to all 3 of you.
Hey, can I quickly insert to the federal agencies? So you all just heard Mr. Spratlin. You mind trying to dig up your IGAs and MOUs with us and give us what you think might be still timely? It would probably help. I know I have some, but I'm sure I don't have them all. So if that's not, I don't know if you guys have an easy repository to say, hey, these are the ones with Montezuma County or not. Hopefully you're better organized than we have been. My guess is you're not, but we'll see.
Which one of you would like to start?
Sure. So, Mr. Spratlin actually took a lot of the thunder, so no pun intended there.
Just add to it and correct it.
Right. Oh, no corrections. You did a good job. The only thing I'll add with regards to fire is that, at least for this fiscal year, it's highly unlikely that we're going to do any prescribed burning just because of the COVID situation. So we've already reallocated most of our prescribed burning funds towards mechanical treatment out on the ground. So we have quite a few thinning contracts out there that we've just reallocated dollars to those contracts that had options associated with them. So at least through the end of September, we don't anticipate doing any prescribed burning. Any questions on that?
I've had a couple of questions, and it's just right above up on the Boggy Draw where you went in there, and there was some thinning of oak next to the road, and I'm not sure, but are you familiar with what I'm talking about? Right before Bean Canyon.
Was it right along the?
Right along the road. Yes.
Well, was it right along the boundary though, the private land boundary?
So I don't know if there's private land right there. I thought it was forest, but anyway, the question is somebody did a lot of work cutting it, and then there was a machine used to come and shred it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had multiple citizens ask, well, why didn't they just use that machine first and just run it through the oak brush to mulch it up instead of
right
through the.
Well, we did have some crews in that area here a couple of years ago, and the intent was, to come back and burn the piles that they had created. But because of the proximity to private land and because of the situation that we're in, we said, well, let's just get out there because we got a fire hazard there now. Let's just get out there and get rid of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that may be
Yep.
what happened.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So the next thing is just last Friday we sent out a letter to all grazing permittees with regards to, there again what we were talking about, the dry conditions. A lot of our permittees are moving through their rotations probably 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule, compared to the norm. Which if it continues this way, would mean that they'd be coming off early. So. For the past few years, we've got the rain just in time to actually not be in that situation. Hopefully that happens again. But there again, we did, have that communication with all the permittees, just to let them know that, and they already know it themselves, of course. So that went out. Any questions on that? No. And then the last thing I'll just talk about was just our office status is, we still, we have different phases that we're in. We're in what is considered phase 1 at this point in time, which means, similar to what District Attorney first was saying is that, maximum flexibility with telework and things of that sort. We are not open to the public, and we don't anticipate that we're going to be open to the public anytime soon. We have done a lot to accommodate the services that we provide. For one, we're not charging for fuel wood permits this year at all through the end of the calendar year. But a person still has to come and pick up a free use permit. All that is available to them outside of the office where they can go and pick that up. We've also worked with some of the local businesses in town to ensure that they have maps and things of that sort that they purchase from us, and then they can sell to the general public, so that there again, that the public has an option, in being able to procure those types of things. So we're working with there again the businesses to make sure that that's available to them, and then there's a lot of online opportunities as well for those folks that have that familiarity and ability to purchase things online. So, yeah, so basically, I guess the long story to the short message is that it's going to be this way, for the foreseeable future with regards to our office status. And that's all I had.
Derek, can I ask, do those phases, are those directives from Washington DC or elsewhere, or how much discretion do you have on that?
We actually have quite a bit of discretion, and it's based on local conditions. Where we're tracking the information is at the national level, but it's all the way down to county. What's affecting us is, kind of what you were describing, is it's a very sensitive, what's the word I'm trying to think of, a model or output, in that, we go 1 or 2 days with, no new cases, and then all of a sudden we'll have 5. And when it goes up to that 5, it throws the whole thing into like, oh, you guys are, having a spike, and even though it's a minimal spike, and anyways, that, so that's why I think we're going to be in this, for a while, because we're going to have those little things. So the information is coming from the national level, but the decisions are being made at the local level on whether or not, how we're going to operate our offices.
Any questions?
Yeah, Derek, have you dropped your pursuit of the Zwicker property up there on House Creek, on your House Creek Road? Have you dropped that pursuit?
Having not heard back from you all, on the information that I had provided, we made the decision that yes, that the protections that are in place on that piece of property, will be sufficient from a resource standpoint, so we're not concerned about that. There are some, potential other issues that if somebody were to purchase the property, that it would then, could become unavailable to the grazing permittee in the area. And then just the general, long-term situation with it, is uncertain when somebody else purchases the property. But at this point in time, we're not going to pursue that, correct?
Right. And, that wasn't our necessary our goal to discourage that. We just wanted to make sure that we had that no net loss in place. And I know you'd tried to give us some examples and of the Forest Service and how somehow there was already a margin of land sent back to private ownership from the Forest Service that somehow would mitigate this 107 acres. But I have to look at the total federal lands, not just the Forest Service, and we're in an extreme deficit when you look at the BLM and the Forest Service and CANM. If we look at those 3 agencies, we're in a horrendous deficit as to public land taking over private lands without any reciprocal giving back of those public lands to the private sector. So not to dismiss what you tried to show us, but I look at all the public lands as one lump sum, and we're still in a large deficit to you guys. So,
and thank you for those clarifications through the emails that came back and forth to us. I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead, Connie. Thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Good morning. I'm going to take my mask off because I sound like Cottonmouth.
You are allowed.
You get to do that while you're talking.
Yeah. All right. Well, good morning. I think this is the first meeting I've been out to since March.
Long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Appreciate your time today. I don't have a whole lot, but I would like to introduce Doug Mays. He's our acting monument manager. We are still challenged with advertising the position. It's driving me insane, but luckily we have people like Doug coming in and helping to carry the load until which time we get that position advertised. We're getting much closer. They are utilizing a different staffing profile, and so we've had a big learning curve on that as well. So no excuses. It's taken way too long.
That's because it's hard to replace Marietta.
There you go, Larry, Don. That was beautiful. Thank you. All right. So with that, I really only have one topic. I did send in a briefing paper. We've kind of resorted to these briefing papers that we typically use for our congressional briefings, but I feel like it's a handy tool. So I did send that to Shaq and James for your use. It is multi-county since we have 6 counties that we cover in the Terrestrials Field Office, but you can kind of sort through those and see if there's anything of interest from a Montezuma County standpoint. What I would like to highlight is on the second page, just wanted to let you know that we continue to work on the Summit Lake Fuels Project, and it's a fuels mitigation project that we're doing on the BLM. I sent a map, Shaq. I don't know if you can get that clicked in for the county. Probably sent it about 9:30.
This morning?
Yeah. No time like the present, Keenan.
No time like right now, huh? Yeah,
You
let's do it
betcha.
right
Well,
now.
if I would have like
If it
been
doesn't
a
get
better
here
planner
before-
and sent it to you a week in advance, I would have lost it. So,
We probably would have too.
all right, if you could scroll down a little bit, and if you can see there's a red outline area that shows the BLM. Oh, that one's perfect. We are working on fuels mitigation on the BLM, which is really kind of a thinning project to ensure that if a fire does start on BLM, the likelihood of it moving on to private is reduced. So that's one of the big projects that we have at Summit. This, we did about, let me see, I think it was 138 acres previously along the southern borders of Summit. And our next project, which is outlined with the yellow highlight there to the west, we're looking at about 27 acres of BLM. And we have a cooperative agreement with the private landowner there to access the BLM. Otherwise, we have a hard time getting to the BLM, as you well know. So we're very excited about that project. We've had good cooperation from some of the homeowners. They recognize the value of the BLM doing mitigation work. And certainly, we always encourage private landowners to do their own fuels mitigation work. So that's really the big project that I wanted to share with you today. Doug's going to give you an update on Canham, a lot going on there.
Can you visit the issue of, and Commissioner Candelary's been working on it with the landowner, but the access to the BLM property off of 30.
Right. I heard that there is something, I guess you guys have found an easement document that would allow for public access. We're pretty excited about that. I have been talking back and forth with James about if the BLM could get that boundary line surveyed. I told James it takes us a little bit longer, so I can request a survey. It could be next week or it could be several months. So we want to be a good partner on that, and certainly I can put that request in. It could be that it happens next week. It could be that it takes a while. But we're very
We can
excited.
get it surveyed if that's sufficient for you, our survey. We can get it surveyed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that what we don't want to run into is what we had on the other section to the east of Summit. And conveniently, if you scroll down a little
Gotta
bit,
speak out of line, can't we?
that parcel is on this map as well.
So Connie, just let me ask a question, because last time we provided the survey, then you had to verify it. So wouldn't it make more sense just to have you guys survey it, verify it, and within your own agency, so that we don't have to go through one more step and just complicate matters? So if that's the case, I'd rather just see you guys go ahead. If it's going to be done next
Your
week,
boundary, you survey it.
then we can go ahead and get that done, and then we can figure out with the landowners of where to move that parking lot or place it so that it's out of their
View field,
line of
view
sight.
shed.
Yes. So Jim, what happened last time is that we surveyed the BLM boundary, and then you guys placed the easement on there. And so that's what created that
Wedge.
two
Yeah.
duplicative survey, I guess, approach. And it really was because we originally thought that they abutted each other, and the wedge was like 1 inch to 12 inches wide. And so therein lies the challenge of the public access. My understanding, and I am not a survey expert nor a lawyer, nor do I want to be, for the record, is that the description of the easement that goes to the west now that you have located indicates that it abuts the subdivision line, which is also the BLM line. So we can survey the BLM. I don't know that we can place the actual easement description on there. So it's kind of collaborative in nature. We can certainly mark the boundary of the BLM, and because the description says that it abuts it, I think that we would be okay. But I had
So-
asked James whether or not you guys were gonna survey the easement, so it's kind of two-part in a lot of ways, but
Okay.
I can certainly request to get the BLM line
Well,
surveyed.
as long as you're working with James and we
Yep.
get that done so that everybody is on the same page, we all agree to it.
Okay.
And then we can move that project forward.
Yes.
And then we do need to be able to meet with those folks to get that out of that line of sight.
Yeah,
which
and
we
you know what?
discussed that earlier, and I think we're okay
When we
with that.
originally were working with a landowner there that could have seen a parking lot, we had told him that we were happy to move it down around the corner behind the oak brush or whatever, and that's doable. There is a power line and a pipeline right-of-way there, which we had needed to do a little bit more homework on, but that looks to me like we can make that work as well. So that's always been a non-issue for the BLM, and we made that real clear with the landowner, that would seem like a reasonable request, and we could accommodate it relatively easy.
So you'll
Great.
go ahead and request that then? Because we're ready to.
We can request a survey, I can't guarantee when it would happen, Larry Don, for the BLM boundary.
Do you use somebody here locally for your request?
The way that the BLM surveys work, and actually the Forest Service uses our surveys as well, is we submit a form to our state office, and then that gets disseminated out to the 3 surveyors in Colorado, and then they work that into their workload. So the surveyors do cadastral work for both the federal agencies, including the Forest Service, so we just kind of get worked into the overall workload. Sometimes they have an afternoon and it's a small project and they can work it in. Other times we just need to get in the queue. So it could be a few months, it could happen next week. I'd have to talk with the surveyor and see what the timeframes are.
Okay.
So, but I'll let you know, once I talk to him. But we've been talking between James and the surveyor and I, ever since I found out that you guys have found that additional legal access. So, and thank you for that. I've really appreciated, was pretty excited that we heard that there's a potential to get to the BLM lands. It's over 2,000 acres of BLM lands. That's pretty critical, in my opinion, to this community. And the good news is that it's kind of a hiker equestrian area, and so the use will be there. It's a niche that we need to provide that type of recreation experience to, and I think the hunters will be happy, and just people who want to get out on their public lands. So thank you for that. As far as, I'll just say a couple things about the COVID. Interestingly, as Derek did a great explanation of how the federal government's dealing with the COVID, we do have that authority at the local level. Forest Service is in phase 1, we're still in gating, and that is, again, I think because of the ability to have those decisions at the local level. As soon as we were close to being able to implement into phase 1, which really the big difference is mandatory telework versus maximum telework for our employees, though we're really kind of some hybrid of maximum telework because we've got people going to the field, we've got seasonals popping by the office to get, their supplies, their data sheets. So we're some hybrid of mandatory versus maximum telework. Good news is we're getting our work done. We have had some challenges with connectivity with the internet, as I'm sure everybody in the community gets challenged with everybody trying to telework. But we are continuing to monitor our friends to the west in San Juan County, Utah, as well as our friends to the south who have had big spikes in their numbers. So that does weigh into our decision making as well, as just being really aware and cautious of the folks that are having to travel perhaps up here for services and being aware of that. So, but the good news is we're getting our jobs done.
Connie, would that mean that there's less people out in the field?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Nope. 'Cause
there's a lot more people out there on our public lands.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's been a really interesting spring, Larry Don. We've had a lot more visitorship at our campgrounds. And had we had a river season, I'm not quite sure we would have pulled that one off. It would have been a little bit dicey, but people have been really respectful, both with the fire restrictions and just recognizing that we're all trying to do the best we can to get through this. So as far as services, we are doing curbside service for map purchases and permits. We now have firewood online, So people can go into a website and get their firewood permit and go from there. So that technology thing that was brought up is very true. We're really trying to figure out how to make things more available to the public via technology or online options. So that's all I had. I wanted to turn it over to Doug. He's got a little bit of a list to go over today, but some good stuff going on at Canyons of the Ancients.
Thank you, Connie. Go ahead, Doug. Thank you.
Good morning. I do have a bit of a list, but I just wanted to give some updates on some upcoming work. Painted Hen Pueblo, we were in public scoping that closes out tomorrow, and that's a project to improve public access to the site, reconfigure the parking area, adds a shelter and a restroom, some interpretive signage, and just generally improve the site for visitors. As I said, that scoping ends tomorrow. We anticipate being able to move forward with that EA pretty soon based on the input that we've received and targeting beginning work on that in the fall. We also have some stabilization work to be done up at Lowry Pueblo. I think primarily based on moisture and some erosive forces that have been at work there for the last few years. We're working with Mesa Verde National Park and Southwest Conservation Corps Ancestral Lands crew to get some stabilization work done there. That'll be from August 11th through September 3rd. We don't anticipate any public closure there during that time, so the public will still be able to access the site and enjoy the amenities out there. One of the big projects that came up onto our radar just in the last couple of days, we got a date finalized. They're going to be doing some resurface work on the parking lot at at the visitor center. And for that reason, we will be closed to the public Monday, July 27th through Tuesday, August 4th. We're working to get that word out through social media, through local media outlets, our website. We've been working with the Cortez, the Cortez Welcome Center to make sure that we have plenty of information available to folks that stop there first. And brochures through the Public Lands Office as well, because we've been doing a lot of that outside of our facility, so we've been trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows, so people aren't unaware when they show up. And we have actually, even during this closure, even though the visitor center isn't open, we've been, over the last month or so, we've been getting about 100 visitors a day. So we've been working on ways to accommodate them, make sure their experience is good, get them the information they need, have folks available to come out for the Junior Ranger program, things like that that folks expect when they show up there. So we've been working different ways to accommodate those needs, and I think it's been good and safe for both sides. So in addition, for the visitor center, we've been working through the process of receiving payment through recreation.gov. So we've been getting that set up. Most of the national parks use it. A lot of campgrounds use it. So we're kind of coming on board with that, and I think that'll give us good flexibility as we move toward opening to be able to schedule and accommodate occupancy restrictions, whatever happens to come down the pike, so that folks can still come and enjoy the museum and have a good experience and not show up and have to wait in long lines and that sort of thing. So we hope to have that finalized within the next month or so. I believe we move forward with that. And then finally, the Yellow Jacket float iron grazing permit reissue. So yesterday was the final day for tribal response. We're currently scheduling some of those tribal consultation meetings right now. The President's Advisory Council on Historic Preservation has chosen to participate on this, and the SHPO has not yet responded to the determination of effect. We have received a letter from the county commissioners and other interested parties.
SHPO has a different timeline than everybody else.
Yeah, very disheartened to see that they're involved in this process. In fact, I think you can just about put the padlock on both those permits, that there'll never be another cow on them. And I think that's, the ultimate goal's been reached. They've got them all kicked off. So congratulate SHPO for coming down and putting the final nail in the coffin, would you?
And he was going after SHPO, not you, so.
Understood.
Yeah,
Thank
not
you.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Good, no, not
Yes.
you, but it's all,
Go ahead.
Well
Are you,
done,
is that it? Or-
So I'll just add a couple of things. Doug, thank you. Doug
Yes,
comes
thank you,
to
Doug.
us
We
from
do
the
appreciate it. We're
Wyoming,
glad to meet
yeah,
you.
Wyoming State Office. He's their GIS program lead there, and he's in emerging leaders. Emerging leaders?
That's correct.
Thank you. There's different names for different ones. He's done a fabulous job since he's been here, and as you know, we've taken on a few controversial things and continue to work through those. As far as yellow jacket floodine, we have had a significant interest in the cultural resources versus grazing. I'm not going to kid you on that. We are pleased that Montezuma County is asked to be an interested party and participate in this process. I think the position that you take is important as well. We are struggling with trying to get our tribal consultations done, just to connect with folks in a conference call or a Zoom meeting. So have patience with us and the tribes as we continue on through consultation that is required under law. It's the right thing to do as well. But it is going to take us a bit longer to talk with those that have requested tribal consultation. We had one attempt, I think, last week, and it didn't work out. So please know that we're on it, and we're going to continue to get those meetings set up with the tribes. We owe that time to them. It's their right based on their ancestral homelands. So just wanted to let you know that. And we can talk further about the role of the county and your concerns about grazing on Canyons of the Ancients. Please know that grazing and livestock use has been identified as an appropriate use on Canyons of the Ancients National Monument. It's in the proclamation. So I think that does support that multiple use can occur on Canyons of the Ancients. But stay tuned. We're going to work through this process together. Keenan, I appreciate your position on that and your concern, and we'll just keep working with the county on this. Thank you.
Is that all, Doug?
I am through.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
I have none. Thank you, Connie,
Yeah,
for
thank all of you. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
all you
Real quick
guys are doing.
clarification question for John. If we find documents, do you need the documents, or do you just need to know names of
Oh.
MOUs and ideas that we might have?
Good question. I don't know, Jim.
Okay.
Connie's has my card, I'll give you my card on that.
I mean, we don't need originals or anything like that, but if you have PDFs of them, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
How long is Doug here for?
What's that?
How long is Doug here?
Here until October 3rd.
Where are you originally from? Where will you go
Wyoming.
back?
I'll go back to Wyoming.
Oh,
Didn't want to stay.
not bad.
It's not a bad place to go.
This is a better place.
We like to hear that.
Well, you could stay here longer than October 3rd.
I mean, how long has it been since they haven't had, since Marietta's been gone? A couple years?
Oh, at least a year.
yeah, probably right at 2 years.
She
Yeah.
retired just before.
Okay, Commissioners, we have a discussion. The governor's Polis's executive order.
We've already
Say-
had some discussion.
I think we've had a lot of discussion, and some of it is going to be,
I'm curious that our district attorney, his statement that he made, that is an enforceable, that the executive order by Governor Polis is law and can be, I've seen a opinion that differs from another attorney that differs from what our district attorney has.
Well, I think
No,
what
actually, he
Mr.
said-
First said was that there's no teeth. He did not put an enforcement mechanism, and he also
Correct.
said that the governor did that intentionally, did not put an enforcement mechanism in.
You know,
So
for-
it is an unenforceable law, but it is law, is my understanding of what he said.
I would actually, for me, and then I'll shut up because I think this is really simple. I think that this discussion is a non-issue. Number one, I'll use the words of our district attorney talking about the businesses and private property about if they require you to wear a mask or not, so that would go both ways.
Yep.
So that would take out one section of the governor's order, and then the second one would be the public places, which would be such as this place
This building.
or the cities, and those decisions will be made based. So for me, it's a non-issue. I would comment that Laura Schaefer, I respect her opinion, and I thought that she did a very good job of articulating that earlier today.
A lot of what he said also too makes sense, that there is no teeth in this, and we've basically posed our business owners to be basically the enforcer of this, which is not right. And that's what's going to create the altercations, and that's what I would like to try and make aware of everybody, is that we can't be doing this. The minute they start dividing us, they will conquer us. And that is where we've got to get back to some logical reasoning of just being good people, being friendly to each other, being kind. I read an email from a gentleman, I think Commissioner Ortel spoke about it earlier, but at some point in time, we can't do that. We got to stop killing each other. We've got to live in this together. So I being quiet about it and respectful and honor each other, I think that's where we have to head. That's where we need to go down. I believe in a higher power, and I honestly believe that when that day comes for me, that day comes for me, and I can do everything in the world. However, what I should do is always respect and honor. And if this situation, we be quiet. It's not enforceable.
It's not our rule.
It is not our rule. There are enough state
Not
patrol
ours.
in the state to enforce this, just as the DA said, but I'd say leave it up to our own department heads within your departments. You guys have the ability and the flexibility to manage that. I think all of our departments are set up right now for working at a reduced rate or from
Remotely.
phone, computers.
Behind plexiglass.
Behind the plexiglasses that we have installed. We can work with the DA on his other issues that he needs to have help with.
Mhm.
But the bottom line is that we have got to get moving our county forward with some logical direction, and this infighting has got to stop. And,
So, go ahead, I'll let you finish.
I could go on forever, so I will stop, and I'll let you go ahead and speak, Shaq.
I've got a few things that I'd like to bring to this conversation. And you guys will end up making whatever decisions that you end up making. But here's what we do know about COVID for the state of Colorado. The population of Colorado is 5.4 million. There's been 439,068 tests for COVID as of yesterday afternoon. Assuming that was one test per person, that would be 8% of the population being tested. Of those 439,068 tested, 40,142 of those tests were positive. That's 9% of those tested, which is 0.75% of the population. Of the 40,142 COVID positive cases, 6,032 have been hospitalized. 15% of all positives did end up getting hospitalized, and 0.11% of the population ended up being hospitalized. Of the 6,032 hospitalized, 1,615 have died from COVID. So that's 26.7% of those hospitalized died from COVID. 4% of those of all who tested positive from COVID died because of COVID, and 0.029% of the population died from COVID. This virus is now a part of human existence. No amount of politics, no economic shutdowns, or masks is going to make the virus go away. We are now 5 months into 15 days to flatten the curve.
Which means that they told us it would 15 days. Is that what you're?
Yeah, they said 15 days to flatten the curve. We're 5 months into that now. The healthcare system asked for time to prepare, and that time was given to them. For some reason, some genetic variants, the Navajo population has a worse reaction to the virus than the Caucasians and possibly other native tribes around us. Here's what we know about the virus in Montezuma County. Our population is 26,183. There have been 2,692 tests for COVID, assuming again 1 test per person, and I know that some were repeated in the Ute tribal testing, but again, that'd be approximately 10% of the population, which is 2% more than the rest of the state has been tested here. Of the 2,692 tested, 90 of them came up positive. That's a 3.3% of those tested were positive. The state rate was 9%. 0.3% of the population has tested positive, and the state rate was 0.75. Of the 90 positives, we do not know how many were hospitalized or how symptomatic or asymptomatic they were. If those making policy decisions are to make informed decisions, then they need to be given information with which to make those decisions. Of the 90 who tested positive, and again, these are all of before the update last night, of the 90 who tested positive for COVID-19, 2 died from COVID-19. So 2.2% of those who tested positive have died from COVID. The state rate is 4%. 0.009% of the population has died from COVID in Montezuma County, and the state rate is 0.029. Again, these numbers have been updated since yesterday afternoon. We did have 1 more death, bringing the percentage above 3%. Here's what we don't know. COVID-19 is a virus, and many viruses have long-lasting consequences. Chickenpox is caused by a virus. It was once believed that when a person had chickenpox as a child, they were done with it for life. Since then, we have learned that people who had chickenpox as children are more likely to develop shingles from the dormant virus later in life. Herpes is caused by a virus. Once a person is infected, they carry the virus for life, mostly without symptoms. However, symptoms do flare up from time to time. HIV is a virus that does not go away and for which there is no cure. So we do not know what the long-term consequences of this virus are going to be, and we do not know if there will be a second wave in the fall as predicted, or if we will continue to see 1 to 3 cases per day. What we know about masks is that surgical masks are worn by surgeons to prevent contamination of the surgical field by airborne and droplet-transmitted bacteria and viruses. So we do know that it has been proven clinically that masks do reduce the transmission of bacteria and viruses that are airborne. Some people who work at one of our local skilled nursing facilities tested positive for COVID-19. They have been required to wear masks when at work, and none of the residents of that facility have gotten COVID-19. So that speaks to, it seems to slow the transmission from those who are wearing the masks. Doctors and nurses at the hospital take care of COVID-19 patients. They are required to wear masks and the patients are not. I have not yet learned about one who has contracted COVID-19. Many people who are now wearing masks are wearing them improperly. They are being worn below the nose, around the neck, and are constantly being touched along with other parts of the face. Additionally, the masks are likely not being stored in a sanitary manner when not being worn. Here's what we don't know. We do not know that the cloth face coverings will be as effective as medical masks. However, we do know that improper use and unsanitary storage will be less effective and possibly more harmful. We do not know what the midterm and long-term social consequences of the mask wearing is going to be. Here's what we know about the politicalization of the virus in Colorado. We can't get this to play. Well, I've got it on my phone. I can play it for you there so that you guys can at least hear what our governor has.
Can you take off that
Take off what?
Well,
The
on the right,
speaker?
it's showing that the
Speaker?
It's up.
That's volume. yeah.
It just won't, I can't get it to play.
Play.
So, that's okay, because I have it here for you to listen to. I'll just play it into.
When the protest concluded, it is not. And by the way, I respect the fact that many Coloradans who joined the protest concluded it is not possible to stay at home. It is not possible to remain silent in the face of the killing of George Floyd, in the face of ongoing racial discrimination. And I completely respect the fact that those Coloradans consider that essential, and they would consider it unconscionable to remain at home. So staying safer at home when possible. And we wouldn't ask anybody to stay at home when it's not possible and when your conscience doesn't allow you, conscience doesn't allow you to stay home.
So, when public health orders are allowed to be ignored by the governor who ordered them because of political ideologies, the orders, in my opinion, cease to have any meaning. When the governor does not equally apply the law to everyone, it really doesn't apply to anyone. I am not going to enforce on my employees a cluster of rules when the governor who made the rules would not enforce the rules on the people who happen to align with his political platform. I will continue to stress respect for our neighbors. It was the governor, not your neighbor, who created the rule that you don't want to live by. Or it was the governor and not your neighbor who allowed for the initial breaking of the rules based upon a political affiliation. Before there was a mask mandate, when Montezuma County experienced its first case, multiple cases, and first death from the virus all in 1 week, the citizens of the county wisely reacted with caution. If in the fall cases become more symptomatic again, I believe the citizens will respond appropriately, even without the government's prompting. If I or the BOCC am mistaken about the number of symptomatic cases, then those who have the information should be more diligent about sharing information on which policy could be based. That's what I have to say about the mask order. I think there's significant evidence to show that wearing a mask will reduce the virus, but I don't believe that it's okay for protesters to assemble and for congregations not to. I don't believe it's okay to tell people it's essential to buy clothing at big box stores and not at secondhand stores. I think that it should be the place of the healthcare providers, whom we should listen to tell us how to fight a virus, and not politicians.
Thank you, Administrator Powers. Commissioners?
I see our public health department stepped into the room. Do you guys have any comments? I mean,
I'm also going to add that I will be wearing a mask when I go out in public to gas stations, supermarkets, and places like that. One, because there is evidence that wearing the mask will help reduce the spread of the virus, and two, because I despise when people in government do not live by the same rules as everybody else is expected to live by.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you, Shaq.
Bobby.
Okay, is this on? Yes? It's red. Okay.
Are you sure? Is it on, Kim? It doesn't look like it's lit up.
you can't see it.
Okay.
I can't see it.
Okay,
Oh, it
so
is.
I'm on. Okay. First, I just want to say thank you, Laurel, this morning. That was from the heart, and I think she touched all of us. So now I'm going to be public health director. So just from public health's perspective, Montezuma County Public Health Department supports the mask order basically in what Shaq was talking about, because there is evidence that it decreases spread. Public health has an obligation to work towards that for our community. So, but we are sticking with what public health does, which is education and prevention. Those are our pillars of how we should operate, and masking and encouraging it and modeling it, what Shaq was just saying, we are modeling it in our department because That's what we'd like to see people do, to wear the mask to decrease the spread, because that is part of preventing it. So we're going to continue down that road for the prevention and education of the disease spread. And this is, again, being done by the modeling that we're doing by wearing facial coverings in our office and when we're out and about in the public. Case management of all positive cases, including all the contact tracing that we're doing. That is a huge prevention mechanism to decrease the spread. So that is where we are spending most of our time these days. One key thing that I really want to enforce, in my view, is the key concept of we should remember that public health and the financial health of our community are completely intertwined. They work together and in unison. And if we break that intertwining and that webbing, then the financial health of our community is clearly at risk. And none of us want that to happen. So we're looking at schools beginning. We are working in public health with RE1, with Mancus, and with Dolores. We have meetings, actually our first breakdown meeting is tomorrow. We have the guidance that has been given for schools. It is taking a lot of effort and work but we all want the schools to open. Families want to get back to some sort of normalcy. The kids need to be educated. We need to move down that road, but we want to do it as safe as possible. So there are some rules and regs that have been put into place that are recommended. We are working through all of those. But I really want to stress that the public health and the financial health are really intertwined. They intersect dramatically. So they're not separate entities. So as far as the schools go, I kind of touched on that a little bit. We want all of our students and all of the staff involved in the education process to be as safe as possible. That's everybody in the schools are part of that, as well as the families who those children go home to and who those workers go home to. Finally, I just would like to ask everyone to please socially distance when possible. Please wear a mask indoors when possible. And whenever you can't socially distance, again, wearing the mask, clean those frequently touched surfaces a lot and wash your hands. We have a wonderful community here in Montezuma County, and if we work together on this, I know that we can get through this. So that's all I have to say from public health and where we're going. You guys have any questions?
I don't, other than, I want the people to understand that this is not a public health order.
No, it is not.
This is an executive order.
Yes, and,
So
yep.
we, as public health, Montezuma County, we basically have nothing to do with this order. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
and
so-
I clarified that yesterday with the state. I emailed the state, and CDPHE's attorney emailed me back. There will not be a public health order to go along with this executive order, just like Will spoke of earlier this morning. That's not going to happen. It's only an executive order, and I believe that part of why he put this masking in is to support the schools, because that is a large gathering of a multitude of ages, people with all kinds of medical conditions, some we know about, some we don't. We don't always know if a child has a heart condition or a lung condition. So, and unfortunately, we find out after something's already happened. So if you think about those kids and those families, that's why this thing is so important for schools. So I think that's part of, again, this is just my opinion, but I think that's part of why the governor timed this mask order, and looking at the numbers, obviously, because cases have increased, throughout the nation, unfortunately. So, but anyway, so we're working hard with the schools, and the schools are working hard to try to do this in a very reasonable way so that they can continue with the openings, and I believe that we'll do it, so.
So, I mean, I don't know about the details about the schools, but I was telling the commissioners earlier that when my daughter was in preschool and up till about 5th or 6th, that we knew the day that she went to school, that 2 weeks later, somebody in our family was going to be sick. Right? I mean, I think we've all experienced that. And, and then because they all come together.
Right.
And so the majority of us lived, but I guess what my comment is we all know that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So are we really going to be able to prevent what I'm talking about that's happened for generations, that as soon as that,
Well, yeah, no,
what I'm saying?
you're right, Larry, Don, I agree with you, it happens every year. That's been a topic of conversation that we've had with the schools. You know, the staff is saying, you know, every year we have 2 weeks in, we start seeing the sicknesses, right? There is screening protocol that's being put into place, because there are certain distinct things about COVID that, as far as symptoms. Now, yes, there's a whole population that are asymptomatic, but they're basing a lot of it on the screening tools that are in place. We're going to be instituting some of those. The thing with children, and I don't want to quote the statistics, but the American Academy of Pediatrics, that's part of what the schools are basing their information on. Children aren't necessarily at greatest risk of the virus, and they're not necessarily the greatest spreaders. Your employees are the ones that are going to be at greatest risk, because a lot of times children will have it. If they do have it and they're not even symptomatic, you wouldn't know that they're sick. But the people that are in the classroom, or the children who might be immunocompromised, those kids are going to be the ones at greatest risk. And as we've all seen on the news, I mean, some children really get very sick with this, but that's not the majority of the children, thank goodness. But if that's your child, it doesn't matter. It's very, very significant to those families. So you're right, but that's part of where the masking piece comes in. Social distancing is great. That is the number one, but we all know that's not going to be done with 6-year-olds in a first grade classroom. It's really impossible to do. That's why the masking piece is coming into play. Now, 10 and under, it is recommended, not required. 11 and up, it's required. So that's the way it exists right now. Now, again, how that's going to be formulated with our schools, I don't know, but that's what the guidance says.
I remember my childhood, and I remember my high school days. I remember my middle school days. And I can just tell you one thing. Those kids might wear those masks until noon.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to go around the building, and there's going to be 3 or 4 of them wrestling around. That is kids, and I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way kids are. Sure. And I don't know. It almost defeats the purpose when we all know how children, unless you forget your childhood days, but it will happen. Or they will go to lunch together, and they'll be hugging each other.
And there's conversation about how that's going to look, the possibilities of possibly grouping kids. And again, this is all being talked about and strategized right now. So, and the educators, the people who work with the kids, they're the experts. You know, they know how the schools work. They know what's best with working with the kids. We're coming from a public health perspective, and that's why we're working together, because we know the health part, and then the schools know how to work the children. So it's a good partnership. We've broken off into smaller groups of expertise. Myself and Dr. Aiken are part of the health group. So it's developing, we're working on it, and the school will obviously share that once it's finalized. But these are all valid concerns. I mean, we're all in a place of unknown. We've never had COVID before in a school. I mean, in a school year yet, so we'll see. I hope we don't have it, but we have to be realistic and prepared for if we do. So, any other questions?
I think just realistically for us three today, I mean, really, we realize that under the jurisdiction of Mancos, Dolores, or Cortez, they have the jurisdiction of those entities, businesses within those jurisdictions. Really, the only thing that we're talking about are within our own structures of how we're going to do this. I think Bobby is implementing the mask policy within her office. That's great.
And we've been doing that. That for us, that's nothing new.
And I understand that. And it sounds like Will wants to do it for his protection of his people that are concern. And I have to, why can't we just leave it to our department heads? Kim is a department head. She's an elected official. She already has precautions in place. I don't think this was, there are no teeth in this order. So I think it's just simple. Let's just respect each other. Let's be quiet and let's go on. That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything, Commissioner?
No, I sure don't.
All right, let's go to county attorney report.
So an interesting development in our Road 41 PAX case is they contacted us this week and floated the idea out of potentially dismissing the case and all allegations against us here in state court and refiling a more limited case in federal court. They want to move it. Our immediate response was, at least not out loud, was, oh, they don't like where this is going right now. They want a different venue. That's still my belief of what they're asking for. I think that after they've spent, in my estimate, several $100,000 on a state court case, to then want to just start from scratch again somewhere else makes no sense at all. So we're objecting to that. It's not that easy to just dismiss a case in a civil case in court. So we'll see where that goes. I think that's what they want to try to do. We don't want to agree to that. One thing that I thought of requesting was, if it was the opposite, they would ask for attorney fees if we wasted a couple years in court already. So what I'm thinking about doing is asking them to disclose their attorney fees to date and then say, if you pay us that to the county, then maybe we won't object to your dismissal and starting over. So that might be something I float out there toward them in response was, you give us a few $100,000 if you're going to dismiss the case. And so we'll see where that goes. We do have oral arguments in the Court of Appeals next week. We do them from here. We do them all over WebEx. Some of your moving to a different case. I know we've been taking a lot of time of numerous employees on an employment law case. Unfortunately, during these times, I know the health department's busy, but we've taken a lot of the health department's time and Shaq's, and I think other people's time as well. But that case is still moving forward. I think that's all I have case-wise to report. Keenan, you asked me a while ago to check with the courts here to see whether or not they were going to request any variances and have jury trials. There have been some jury trials in the state, not a lot. I really have no idea how many. My guess is single digits, like 5 or something like that, since the COVID-19 closed down jury trials. The response that I got back from the court administrator, Mr. Hogue, was that they have no intention of asking for any variances here. Which I think was kind of what you assumed.
Yeah, and I guess I need to explain my motive for asking that. We've got a $9 million courthouse sitting out there that we're paying the utilities on, the heating and cooling and all that, and it's basically it's a mausoleum. There's nothing going on in that courthouse out there, and I.
Should we shut it down?
I tell you what, I'm for going out there and mothballing the place and getting the expenses and the utilities and stuff off our back. If the courts aren't going to use it, and the judges don't feel like they can hold trials and do that stuff, and probation's doing all their stuff by telephone, I'm for saving the county some money and going out there and locking the door and shutting it down until they're ready to come back and go, because it's about $100,000 a year expense for us to keep up with the utilities and all the maintenance and upkeep on that place, and the good old state doesn't. And they ain't flipping a chip to us for that. So I'll tell you, I'm dead serious. I'd like to run that past Eric Hogue and say, you know what, Eric, we're ready to shut that place down, shut the lights off, turn the heating, cooling off, and you let us know when you think you're ready to reopen.
It's not vacant, but definitely it's being used less
Well,
and not to
yeah.
capacity. There are still appearances, and there are people that do go into probation, but it's
minimal.
a very
Way minimal.
fraction of
Way
what
minimal.
it should be seen.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Yeah, yeah, man, that's a big expense to us.
Oh, yeah.
Big-
All right, so
big
is that all, John? Sorry, I got distracted. Natural Resources Planning and Public Lands Report, James Dietrich.
Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Okay, so the first thing I have this morning is I did a little bit of follow-up on the M&M truck stop. I did reach one of the owners. He's a 5% owner. He used to be the CEO of the company, so he's got some pretty good knowledge about it. So they are currently expecting a report in August, and they're hoping that they're going to come in below the state standards for the amount of contamination that's in the soil. It's obviously we have no idea about that, but they're optimistic that they may be given a letter of release in August. They've been doing some bioremediation, so I think that's part of the reason why they're hoping that it may come in a little less than what they originally anticipated. The owner states that state of Colorado is paying about 75% of the cost of the cleanup, and then Jovian is paying the additional 25%. They noted that their delinquency in taxes, they're expecting to have that caught up this year, so they're anticipating paying that. They also talked to a structural engineer who evaluated the building out there, and they found that the building seemed to be sound in terms of its bare bone structure. They do feel like there's probably a reason to take that second story down and do a complete remodel on the building. But they're hopeful that the building can be salvaged. So it sounds like they're willing to work with us, and certainly they were willing to work with in terms of revitalizing that whole corner. They seem to be wide open in terms of ideas. So it is for sale currently. So who knows who we'll have to deal with in the future on this. But this gentleman seemed to be very nice and seemed to be speaking in at least in things that we like to hear. So we'll continue to contact with them. Second thing is, I got a notice from the BLM. Kinder Morgan is planning to do an expansion on their compressor station, and so we've got an opportunity to comment on that. Just received that just yesterday, so I'm going to be probably next week we'll have some comments on that. Then moving on to the BLM Summit access. So I just want to clarify, do we want to wait for the BLM to go out and mark that boundary, or do we want to get Ernie to go out there?
I think for the cost that Ernie stated,
Yeah,
the
$500,
$500, let's move forward.
Okay.
If they have to verify it, fine, but at least I think if we keep moving them at our rate of speed instead of, I think we're going to be more
Well,
successful.
I'm going to
get that
take the
done.
opposite tack to that, because I think the BLM, they're the ones that wants to access to this to their lands up there. They want to put the parking lot and make it open to equestrian and hikers. I think they need to spend the money to get the survey done. My hair's not on fire to get that done. I think they're the ones that are on fire to get it done. I want to see how on fire they really are. We found them a reasonable access. We found them a dadgum easement up there where they can have access to their land. Come on, show us what you're ready to do, BLM. And if surveying your boundaries is the first thing you need to do, then go do it. And let's see how hot you are to put that parking lot in up there.
I recuse myself from this discussion.
You got the yay and the nay. Look. I
understand what you're saying.
And I
but
appreciate you, Commissioner, but I'm tired of them coming in here saying we want this, and they ain't willing to do anything to get it. They put it on us. They put it on us to build the stuff.
But if we're really thinking about the public, it's easier for us to help move the public quicker than them, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not. I hear what you're saying also, and I understand the frustration. I have not been here for almost 8 years, and I appreciate that. However, if we're gonna get something back to where the public can use it, we can sit back and do this all day long, and then it's gonna be 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, or we can take the bull by the horns and get it done in a week. And then
you know
we
what?
move it forward.
And you know what? We're probably gonna spend $500, and they're still gonna say, gee, thank you for doing
Well-
that. We don't have the money to build the parking lot, so.
But it's still open.
Yeah.
If the access is there, people can still walk across it, or a horse can ride across it.
Well,
They
if
don't
they're-
have to have a parking lot per se, they can
Well-
still ride down the road.
Yeah, but
And it's just,
Yeah, you're gonna open a can of worms there,
Well-
man. Yeah, but.
yeah, I
No,
think
I'm-
everything is a can of worms right now, but it's at a minimal cost to move it forward, and that, so you get to decide.
Well, so she did say in the meeting, what she said is that, she says, well, if I was to
Oh, well,
give
I
that
guess we
order,
could.
we don't know when it would take place.
It
Two
might be a
months.
week, or it might be 2 months. She doesn't know when they'll
Yeah.
get around to surveying.
And then what was her response? Did she say that she was gonna do that? That she was gonna give the order?
I thought it was in coordination with James so that they could see what was,
Do you know what she said, James?
I don't recall exactly what she mentioned. She said she can put the order in. That's all I recall. So I think we just need to give her an answer, whether, hey, we'll do it, or
And in your opinion, do you think if it's surveyed, if on our end, that will actually kind of keep pushing them in a direction?
Well,
of-
I'll tell you
Go
what
ahead.
they'll do on their end. If we go out and survey it and we say, this is your boundary line there, then they're gonna have to come in and re-verify it, because they're not gonna take our word that that's their boundary, I guarantee you.
Do you guys remember how she just responded to that question? I can't remember.
she,
Huh?
they will re-verify it.
Yeah, they
and
will.
I
I
do,
think
and
they'll
that means
re-verify
also,
it.
it's
Yeah.
being done twice. And I guess we could, and I would like to use this term monitor, but we can wait for a while and let James coordinate with her to see really what kind of a time frame, once she puts the order in, to see where that's at. But if it's gonna be 6 months or a year, then I don't think
So
we
why don't
should.
we do this? Why don't we give them 2 weeks to see where they stand on their order? And then you could readdress this, and then what do you think, Commissioner?
Let's
I-
ask them to pay $500 towards our survey.
I was gonna say, why don't we just survey it, let them pay
Bingo.
us for it?
And then, I mean, I want
Bingo.
it done, but,
That's
you know,
actually a good idea.
Yeah.
and
Pay-
tell them to put their order in for theirs. And then you guys can
They're all
readdress it
licensed
and-
surveyors. They all function and read the, I mean. I
Well,
like
and we
that.
already have the
Surveyor
easement,
here.
The surveyor, well, it's already been surveyed once, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we found
That's-
out,
it's
we
gotta
found
be
out where the
verified.
sliver was. We found out where the problem was, right?
Yeah, so and actually, that portion of the survey probably is unrelated to the
Yeah, 'cause
easement
it's
we're
Correct.
talking about, because
Correct.
we're
All to the
further on
west.
past that at this point. I would bring up one other question that maybe will help us make the decision. So would our intention to be to adopt that easement or that little tag road up until you turn into the parking lot as a part of the county road system? In other words, are we looking at maybe making that 300 yards or whatever, green sign road?
I don't think we have to get there. I mean, that's
No.
certainly something you guys can talk about, but I don't think we have to get there right now.
Okay.
I mean, that's an easement, and.
Actually,
Okay.
wasn't it described as a right-of-way or an actual easement? Because it was,
Easements are right-of-ways, but, not always public. So, I mean, right now, it's an offshoot from a county road. And, especially if it ever is developed in there, I would think it should be more prioritized as far as, we should start maintaining that. But I don't know how many more feathers we're gonna ruffle by trying to make it a public road.
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then I guess the last thing regarding that is they did ask us for a title commitment, and I've already talked to John about that. So, and I really don't know what they need as far as that goes. But I'll continue to work with John and try to figure out what that last request is really going to
Title
come down to.
commitment on what?
On the right-of-way?
On that easement, I'm not sure that they understand exactly what they're asking for. I mean, I think if we get it surveyed, that might be sufficient for them. We can also show them whatever documents we have that
Okay.
relate to that title.
Yeah, I didn't see any property change hands, so I was kind of going, I don't know what a title commitment really means there, so. Okay, well, we'll continue to work through this then and answer one question at a time.
I think we can go through our Public Lands, Natural Resource Planning and Public Lands Director, James Dietrich, to sign his name for his title. Because it's going to, anyway. Go ahead, James.
Okay, so I just want to let the commissioners know, we've still been working with, Mr. Atwater on the historic roads maps. So I provided a pretty good set of data to them. They can review that. I've also got an incredible stash of historic maps that they can have, and they should have everything they need to go through and finalize what they think the determination should be. So I think the ball's sort of in their court, and we should see a map come back from them soon on that. So then I think the last thing I wanted to bring up to the commissioners is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And I think this was brought up recently again. That plan is, I think it was updated maybe in 2010, something along those lines. So it's relatively old at this point. Ms. Smolsky has been, kind of coordinating an effort to take a look at this and possibly do an update on it. I think it's probably going to be a minimal amount of staff time and something we can probably work at through the winter. And I don't know what the ultimate goal on that is, other than that having a current plan in place probably does set us up favorably for any kind of funding that may be coming down the pipe on that. And it certainly would probably help our emergency manager out in terms of what the future is going to be for emergency management regarding wildfire and preventative measures. So.
Would it help for, with the volunteer fire departments on their, you have the name they use, but response, could that help on insurance, homeowner insurance?
It's possible. I have no idea about that, though.
I don't think ISO rates it. It's not rating your surroundings as far as the density of your forest. It's basically a rating of how well does your fire department take a test and respond. So
you're right, so I shouldn't put the two together, but could it possibly affect home insurance for residents?
Liability if we have a super duper wildfire
In
protection
their
plan and
well, the state of Colorado is.
It depends on the insurance companies, because
Yeah.
we've talked to different ones. But some of the insurance companies have made the mention that I've contacted, that if you get WAP in there, or, you get fire mitigation for your property, you got a better chance of receiving the 100% on it, so it does help that way. This CWPP, James and I have already attended, well, you attended 2 meetings, I've got 1 in there. But it made sense for us to put this together after and during our hazard mitigation plan, because then we have a fresh plan. Then we can go a little bit further and look at mitigation efforts, and maybe help build these plans to make them more current, so that way, we're covered, I think, in the long run for any kind of funding, and issues, even if it comes back from FEMA or some federal funding. So I think it's a good idea. I just don't think it's not going to take a lot of effort, but we were looking at the very earliest, March, maybe, that we bring it before you. At the latest, probably, June.
That sounds good to Commissioner Tell myself.
Yeah, I was thinking, you guys might like that idea.
Can we make it by December 31st?
No.
Try.
No.
Yeah, again, I don't think this thing is a total rewrite. And I think we've all kind of tried to evaluate how much time we've got to put into this. And we're certainly willing to put in whatever time is necessary if we get some kind of a good, useful advantage out of it.
Right, exactly.
And we can re-examine data. We do have new data sets that are coming in all the time. That's always getting better. So
I'm trying to evaluate just how much real benefit will come from how in-depth this report must be, and then I judge from there how many hours I spend on re-updating this. Yeah.
And we don't want to duplicate some of our effort in our emergency operations plan. We have an alert and warning system, and we have an evacuation type plan. The sheriff has that. It has reentry. So it's not like we want to reinvent the wheel and put all of this in this plan. We want to just keep it simple, and that's what we talked about in our last discussion, so.
I'm good with that.
We like simple.
Yeah.
All right, what else do you have, James?
Okay, I think that's it for me.
Thank you for the report. Thank you for the emergency manager to step in as
Yep.
well. We have our county administrator report with Mr. Shack Powers.
Okay, I mostly have contracts and amendments and grants to go over. The first one I will hand off to our county clerk, Kim Purcell.
Tell me down there, up here.
Right here.
Right there.
Right here's
Yeah.
good? Okay.
Yeah.
So
You run this outfit.
So basically, this is just a contract for the equipment for the Vote Service Polling Center for Toyac. And they are covering the expenses for the equipment, but along with it came an additional $1,250 worth of fees, annual fees for the programming and that sort of thing. And so when I presented it to John to look at it, he suggested that I bring it to you guys because it does have budgetary, continued budgetary responsibility. I did contact the state to find out if that was included in this in future years, and they sent me an email back this morning and said, that's a good question, we'll get back to you.
And I didn't mean to suggest, Ms. Purcell, that you shouldn't be the one who signs it. I don't know whose signature line is on there. I just figured the commissioner should know about it since it's a continuing financial obligation.
Exactly.
So if you want to sign it, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted you guys to be aware of it.
Yeah,
that it
and
is a-
really, Kim, I would see if I could get the Mountain Ute tribe to pay that ongoing expense, because that is a direct benefit to them. It's for their use and their use solely.
Well, it's a
And I would-
grant right now, Commissioner Ortel. That's what she's getting money for, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the grant.
So
But-
we don't need them to pay it right now,
Right,
but maybe
right,
in,
but-
yeah.
In future
But down
years.
the road.
But coming
there-
down the road, there will be $1,200 annually then.
Yeah. Yeah.
To,
For just this equipment.
To
We
keep
al-
it.
We also pay that for the other equipment that we have, on a yearly basis, we have a bulk payment that we make a payment for. But this equipment I actually purchased, so that they're not charging us a lease payment for that
Mhm.
either, so.
Mhm.
But just to let you know that that's happening. And
All right, what else you have? Shack a lot?
So the next one I have, actually, ironically, is for the health department, and they've been here twice, but now they're gone. Let me, what did I do with that, administrator? Oh, here we go. They've been awarded their contract. They have another $1,000 coming into their WIC program, and they just need us, or the commissioner, or the chairman, sorry, to sign off on the extra money coming into the WIC
For
program.
what you said?
For WIC, yes, in the amount of $1,000. And then your signature on that.
Do we need a motion for this?
Yes, because it's a contract.
Okay. Are you good with this, Commissioner Candelaria?
I am.
Okay. I would like to move that,
Let me see if I can find a good word on
Okay.
here to call this.
Colorado.
Contract amendment number
Uh,
2, 18 FHL.
Yes, I would like to move that the Montezuma County Health Department enter into an amendment contract number 20*2219, amendment number 2, with the Colorado Department of Health and Environment.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the amendment to contract number 2020 -2019, amendment number 2, which was the contract number 18 FHLA 104036. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Powers?
And then the third one I have is a grant that was awarded to the landfill that they sent via DocuSign, but every time that it comes to me via DocuSign, it's already expired and I can't open the link, which is exactly the same thing you're doing right there.
Yeah.
And this one's from Mel. This is the grant he was awarded for a screener for the composting at the landfill. And so I guess I can put, since I can't open it on DocuSign, I'll try and get it up on Elmo.
That DocuSign sounds like it's really made everything more convenient for everybody.
It really has. It's been,
Yeah, it's just so simple and it works so well. Yeah, it works nice.
so we'll need that to be the signature page, and then we'll need to make copies. Kim will get you the originals back, but Kim needs those. And that is between CDPHE and Montezuma County Landfill. And
Do you have that for him to sign that? Because I don't have that.
I do. I just got it this morning. It's right here. So here's the signature page, but here's what they'll probably need to make the motion, if I can get that clear at all.
Okay with this?
Yeah, sounds like you already got the grant and it's
he's
to
already-
take care of the screener for the compost. That sounds good.
So I would move that we accept the state of Colorado intergovernmental contract with Montezuma County in the amount of $127,500 with CDPHE for the landfill.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the contract with intergovernment contract CDPHE an amount of $127,500 for the screening plant for the Montezuma County landfill. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good going, Mel. Take care, bud.
Yeah.
And then just as a reminder to the commissioners, I will be gone next week. Jim McLean will be filling in for me.
So you can take off that report.
Where am
Off
I
the
supposed to
agenda.
sign this at exactly? Right there, are we the contractor or what are we?
We are the contractor, yeah. And I brought this up a long time ago. I don't know if I'm going to be gone next week or not yet. I haven't made the decision yet. My family's kind of canceled their beach vacation,
Set
but
your
I
trip
still
back.
want to go.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
Go enjoy it just yourself, huh? Yeah.
you know, my son really loves these trips, and
Yeah.
it's difficult for me to just resolve and abandon it. So I'm still teetering on going,
There you go.
but I may be here. We'll see.
If you're gone, will Ian fill in for you?
He may.
Okay.
He may. He will be here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I'll give my report and I'll make it quick because I'm
Sorry.
hungry.
Sorry.
But we had a county or a communications meeting, which the sheriff basically went over a little bit this morning. What they're trying to do is instead of, and if I get this wrong, anybody out there listening, I will correct it later, but they're trying to make an authority board out of that so that everybody has, just like we do at CCI, doesn't matter how big you are, it's basically one vote per, like Cortez PD, the sheriff, Mancos, everybody gets one vote.
Mhm.
So just because of the size of the agency doesn't mean that you're not represented equally.
And what is that? You're talking about?
For the communications
All the
meeting, which
charges for
basically,
dispatch and all that.
all of
for
the dispatch
hospital and
centers,
all
which
that,
is
yeah.
the fire departments, the sheriff's department, PD. I can tell you who's all involved in it.
Well, I know who is, but that would have to be, that authority would have to be released from the commissioners.
Actually,
correct?
it's, the way I understand it, it's, no, we would still make those decisions. The authority board would just bring the
Bring a
recommendations
recommendation,
to
yeah.
us.
I got
So
you.
it's to add
I got
to
you.
that.
And,
Okay.
and
Does that make sense?
hopefully, I think, Jim, their ultimate goal is that's to get a more committed group together to meet on a regular basis, and I think that's
I
been a
think it
large
is,
problem.
and to basically figure out what they're doing with the financial part of it,
Yeah.
and not waiting so long to get these,
Yeah,
so that they're not so far behind on the communication needs of the public.
exactly.
One other thing the new
That makes sense.
police chief has now been hit with by their new finance director is the cost for the building and the personnel that go along with that. So nobody else has ever paid anything for the structure and/or a percentage of that building which houses the communication facility. It's the PD has just basically bared the burden of that the entire time. He feels that he's going to try to talk to council to just leave it as it is right now. Don't upset, don't make any ripples, but, there again, everybody is looking for money.
revenue.
So, we'll see how
But-
good of a salesman he is.
I hope, Jim, when they look back on that, I think when they built that new police department stuff down there, I think the understanding might have been a gentleman's agreement or handshake that the PD was going to provide the building and the physical asset for the dispatch and the 911 board and this communication. Which is what we're doing. We're buying all the equipment, the radios, the transmitters, and all that stuff, and then paying salaries and stuff. So.
And
so
if you look back at that agreement, so I think the county and the city owned the old courthouse.
Together.
And that, it was combined. There was an agreement at the very beginning, and then there was an agreement when they separated.
You're right.
Right?
You're right. I believe so.
I would
believe
like
so.
to-
but
So, anyway, that's
Okay.
just, those are just conversations, right?
I hear you.
Nothing has
Yeah.
been decided.
Yeah.
I'm
There.
just bringing it up.
You're the one that needs to be very aware of that.
I know, I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing, the calls for service and the costs for the service, they are increasing. Just because of, like I was saying earlier, we're running 42.86% of all of those calls out of that dispatch center. So there's at some point in time, we also have to look into the future to where,
Well,
the authority board can then be an asset to be advising us of which way we need to go. Moving on, we did have a protect our neighbors somewhat meeting here Friday morning. Just a lot of discussion, delegations of ideas that'll be forthgoing. Friday afternoon, we had a business meeting with CCI over all of our legislative updates, and I just brought this one up to Attorney Baxter of the 2139 of the county loans for the public infrastructure projects, which that's been kind of brought up to us in a couple different venues now, one for roads, one for the infrastructure of a water system. And after he researches it, then we can talk about that a little bit further, but that was in place. Senate Bill 205, which is a sick leave for 2 more weeks, apparently because of COVID-19. And then obviously the big one was 217 for law enforcement. I already talked about the DOC holds, and then the unfunded mandates that we'll be looking at and exploring through CCI with the new statute. So other than that, that was just quick and dirty, and that's all I have.
Commissioner
Yes,
Urtel?
I had a couple of Zoom meetings with Club 20. The first Thursday I was unavailable, but that was more out of my bailiwick, and the one last Thursday was on agriculture, water, and Ed Miller and I had a long discussion about how weak we feel that Club 20 is in their policy making on water issues in western slope of Colorado in the upper basin, and we let that disappointment be known, and I don't know how well received we were, but they know that they're kind of falling down. Chris Treese has left the River District, and he's head of the committee within Club 20 and sends out very little information, does not correspond well with anybody, and so hopefully some of that will change. Also had a Zoom meeting with workforce. Workforce in Colorado, as they're struggling to find, they've got way more unemployment issues than they have working issues, and it's an ongoing battle with them to try and figure out what their path's going to be to get the, I don't know how many million people that are on unemployment insurance now, and getting them back to jobs and work as fast as they can. And I think that's it for me.
Mine's real quick. I was hired as a county commissioner to be the voice of the people. I will not have the district attorney tell me to be silent. There is two sides to every issue, and both sides need to have their voice heard. I will articulate both sides in a better fashion, but I can't keep silent when I believe that that's what my job was to be the voice of both sides. Thank you. Motion?
That's it.
I would move we adjourn.
Okay. Second?
Motion.
Oh, yeah, we got public.
Sorry.
Would you like to say something?
You're not coming up today, all right.
Welcome home.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.